Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Legion Lads. I am your host, JR. Today we got Jose, Rob, and a special guest, LJ. How's it going, guys?
Yep,
Yo.
it's going good. Glad to have LJ back.
It's good
Yeah,
to
Since
see
you're
yeah.
the
here, JR,
lads
I'm not in a
again.
full suit this time.
Right, right,
And you
right.
didn't dress up in a suit, so I feel like you failed.
I did. It's already what 9? It's past my bedtime, so I gotta just wear the shirt. But LJ's here because LJ saw we covered LVO in 3 episodes, guys, and LJ's got some words for us. He's gonna lay the smackdown.
Three
But
episodes that were still not as good as Stabcasts from last year's LVO.
sure,
That's
sure,
not
sure.
that's not going to be beatable.
Before we get into it, though, I do want to make some announcement. I want everyone to keep in mind for our locals and surrounding cities that VetFest is coming up in July. I believe it's 13th to 14th. That should be a LVOIS qualifier. We're going to be on top of that to make sure that is. So just keep that in the back of the mind there. And then on top of that, we have the first Legion Lads tournament this Saturday, the 22nd. So any of our locals listening that haven't registered, please do register. It's $20 to enter, and Jose's got some nice trophies. Show those off.
Show the trophies.
Yeah, so these are painted by me,
Oh,
courtesy
they're not
of
showing up. Okay, there we
our
go.
local
Oh,
uh, uh, Edward.
Hey.
So
hmm
first place, we got the original Legion lad,
going to me.
and yeah, most likely. And so since we have a new logo every year, I decided let's go ahead and make all the lads on
This is
this.
the
So we
new
have
logo for
yeah,
second
this
Okay.
is
place.
this is you blaming blaming your attack dice, and you took second place because of it. And then
The
third
best
place because
logo.
third place because everyone has blamed their defensive dice, especially us red guys.
Yep,
Just the
yep,
blank, and now you're in
That's
third.
our best logo so far.
yeah. That one, I love that one.
In
Um,
addition to that, the $20 goes to store credit for the
mhm.
first, second, and third place. And then I have hopefully they'll be in time, but I'm gonna have a command card proxy. It's not legitimate, obviously, but a proxy command card with some Simpsons themed Legion cards.
That'd be dope.
So should have some stuff for everybody.
Oh,
Yes. So any of the locals or surrounding areas that can make it to Clovis, uh, please do. That would be an awesome game. And yeah, that's this Saturday. So
This Saturday. Oh, one more announcement. We did get confirmation from Imperial Goldfish that he will be streaming Vet Fest.
that's
So
right. That's
keep an
right.
eye out for that. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be great, hopefully.
Where's
He always
he?
does a great job. It's whether or not we do a great job on the stream. So
Where is he at? Like in California?
he's in the Bay Area.
yeah,
Oh wow,
they're Bay
nice.
Area based.
Heck
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm
So
excited for
that
that.
that triad of Josh Hale, who ran the GT,
Yep.
Nima, who was the head judge for the entirety of LVO, Imperial Goldfish. They have quite the little powerhouse growing
Is
up
Nima over
there.
there?
Yeah, Nima's in the general area too, so
Oh, I've never seen him at any of the Bay Area events. Okay.
he lives a solitary life until I bring him out to judge a super major event.
But
Then he goes back into retirement until the next
like
LVO.
Got
I,
it. Got it.
Exactly, like Yoda.
I need to get Nima so that way Jose could just go into him and Nima's just like
Oh, that
you don't get it. You
that
don't
would
get
be a
it.
war. That would be a war.
But anyways, yeah, that should be exciting. Imperial Goldfish. I had a lot of fun doing their stream too on LVO
Yeah.
this year. So yeah, I'm
Did
excited for
he
that.
did he give you one of his proxies for being on
Yeah,
the
he
stream?
did. I had the
Nice.
standing orders one. It looks super
Yeah.
sweet. Cameras like surrounding
Yep.
the
It's a
stage and
great
everything.
card. I'm just never gonna use it because I have my own that I made. So
Yeah.
Oh, it's got a great quote on the bottom too. It's like all your greatest failures for the world to see or something like that. Like their attitude that they like brought to streaming the event and just in general, which is what kind of
yeah.
gravitated me towards them, was
Yeah.
just so good and so fun. And I love that kind of energy. I love the Simpsons mantra that you guys have grabbed. I love what they've done over there. So just those kind of fun things. I mean, that's what gives our communities character. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
big props to stuff like that whenever you see it.
Yeah.
Well,
But we're not
uh,
here to talk about our small fry
no,
event.
no. We're here to talk about LVO 2025.
2026,
No, no, no.
right?
2025 first.
Oh, five first,
Both
then six.
first one, then the other, and
All
maybe a
right, all right,
little
all
in
right.
between.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the past. And
Yeah.
let's talk about how the Legion lads left LVO 2025 just feeling fulfilled and so gloriously
One of
entranced
us
by the
did.
event that they decided to spend 3 whole episodes talking about it. More than any other content creator that I saw, anyway.
Valid,
Yeah, well,
valid.
most people have other stuff to talk about. We just
Yeah. We just like, all right, this is all we did this year. Let's milk it. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, speak for yourself. I did plenty of events this year,
Yeah,
okay?
and you never talk about them. I don't know what's going on.
I talked about them all of them for like a whole episode. Like
See, this
Um,
is this is why I know that this wasn't going to be a podcast where I just get ganged up on the whole time because I've watched how you guys interact with each other, and you'll just tear each other apart from the inside. I'll just
That's
be
the
over here like
entertainment.
Palpatine, like, yes, do it.
I feel like we're the most disorganized podcast because we're always just biting each other's heads off and
oh
everything.
yeah. I mean it's hard to not when Jose's in the pod,
Oh
so
my God.
Oh, come
No,
on.
I think it's you and Jose. You guys just I'm just bystander. All right, guys.
yeah. Oh, okay, okay.
And then every once in a while, you let Nick out of the cage, and he's a ray of positive sunshine, and then he goes back into the cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Get
just
back over
patiently
there.
waiting just for us to stop. And like, okay, here
Yeah.
we go. Yeah. But all right, LJ, let us have it. What are your thoughts, man?
So, hey, I first of all, obviously you guys generated a lot of discussion and a lot of hot takes on podcasts, but you talked about everything. And the first thing I want to say before we do anything else is thank you. Because the way that you guys went about the discussion, breaking it down as much as we talk about being disorganized, uh, breaking it down into a couple different functional areas, but in that discussion, remembering to thank the staff, naming the people who helped that you met, going through the album of pictures that my wife painstakingly put together of the tables.
And that was, by the way,
Um,
phenomenal that she did that. That was awesome.
That was
right,
awesome.
like that to me matters almost more than anything else that I have heard about the event because there are, people that rush to the information and they want to make the top 8 article. They want to be the first one to get the list out there because even though for some strange reason they don't invite me on their podcast, they want to make sure they put out the information as soon as it comes out because they know it generates a lot of attention. And they forget about all of the interim people that make a big event like that happen. And so the way that you guys approached each section, remembering to kind of thank the people that paved that road for you to get there, meant a lot to me. One of the reasons I wanted to come on today was I wanted to illuminate a little bit, what goes into building this kind of size of event, and what I thought about, how the event went, how the terrain looked, how the pricing was, that kind of stuff. Some of the big through lines that you guys talked about. So, I wanna call back something first that you guys did.
Oh no.
I'm gonna give this LVO a B plus.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a B plus.
All
And I will
right.
tell you that there are a couple different things that matter to me and how I measure an event's success. One of those things, because it is one of the hardest parts, is just getting everything set up and ready to go and then torn down at the end of an event. And I thought that went really well. So that was a big plus this year. Another one that lots of people measure, but that I do think about a lot is, how many people came to the event. What was the numbers that signed up way back in, June, July when tickets go on sale, 7, 8 months later, all the way to when the event happens, which is, this is an event that has a huge amount of time between when tickets go on sale and when the event actually happens compared to a lot of events. Um, that was a high number. Our personal best for a single day at LVO was 145 people. The Saturday at LVO was 160 people, and that was after drops from people going to other events, people wanting to hang
Mhm.
out in Vegas, people advancing to the LVOIS. So that to me is a hugely successful part of it. Um, a a measure of how were you able to achieve your goals with terrain. Really, it sets us apart from other game systems but it also matters a lot to the game. So you can't just say, was terrain good? Because that doesn't really, I think, give credence to all the different parts of or different components that could make up judging terrain. So blanket, I'm going to say that's where the B comes from, and we can break that down a little bit further. And then prizing, I hate to say it, is going to be on a lower grade
Mhm.
for me personally than those other things I just mentioned, because it is something that we want to do and we think the players deserve. But if you don't have the people and you don't have the tables and you don't have the staff that sets up and tears down and makes your event happen, you start to see that prizing probably should be a little lower on your priority list. And then just what are the conversations you had with people during the event? Because people's hot takes before the event and after the event, to me personally, carry a different weight than the conversations you have with people on the ground face to face when they have to see you and look you in the face and tell you how you're doing.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and to an effect, also the conversations that you hear just walking around when people don't think you're paying attention. So I kind of graded LVO off those different functional areas, and that's how I came up with that grade. Like I said, I thought the setup and what we had physically space available to us, everything worked out pretty well. At least for the things that I could control, because I can't control the Rio. That's not my hotel.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, there
you
was no
know,
water coming from the ceiling, so
that was a
much better
plus.
than last year.
Um, like I said, I definitely enjoyed the conversations and the lead up and the afterwards that I've heard since the event. Um, I liked that we had the terrain required to run the event. I think we learned a lot of lessons moving forward, and I think we had what we needed for prizes, but I have an idea of where I want to go to make that a little bit better. So that's my big kind of top level overview. If you wanted to put a grade or something on it, that's how I felt about it. Do you guys think, now that I've explained it, do you think that's an honest answer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
JR says yes. Jose, I'm
Yeah.
expecting you to be like the Simon Cowell of the group.
No,
He
no,
didn't
no,
he,
no, no,
he
no,
didn't
no,
even go.
no.
He doesn't get an opinion.
Well, I
No.
know,
Um
I know, but we have three judges here, so
It's
just like
a it
American Idol's of own, you all
no
get a
no
say.
no,
that's solid. That's solid. I would say an A if
Okay,
Nick would have won the table contest,
Ah,
that's
well,
that's
that's
fair.
true.
That's
That could
fair.
have no,
That would have helped you.
And Rob,
um
thumbs up,
no,
thumbs down to the assessment.
I probably more of a B than a B plus, but what's the difference between
well,
a B and a B plus anyways?
for
And that's what I told my students when I taught middle school. So
Well, I teach too, and that's what I tell my students too.
there
I'm
you
like,
go.
it's a
We're in
B, it's a B
agreement
plus.
then.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
but it does matter if you're in like higher in like law school or something, I would guess. But like there were some things where like the B plus feels like it could be an A, where I feel like this was more solidly in the B category. And
sure.
again, there are different we're measuring different things. Um so that's gonna have different results, but I do like that you came with B plus, so you didn't just come in and say, "Hey, it's an A," and you're like, "It was perfect. You guys are wrong. You're all haters." But no, because even just saying a B plus means even if you thought it was perfect, you're like, "Okay, but I have improvement, right?" And always seeking
Mhm.
improvement. Like, I mean, that's why we're here, right? So, but anyway, you were
Sure.
to say something, JR?
no, I was just gonna say I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I gave the LVO when we did the rating an A minus, and that's only because I like prizes, right? And so,
Yeah.
other than that, like I always have a fun time when I go to LVO. Every 3 years, what 4 years? This is my fourth year going. So yeah, you always do a good job.
All right. Well, then we're
Yeah.
in a general agreement and we can move forward.
Yeah.
That's a good start. So then,
Yeah.
okay, so then let's take it and take a little step back then on each one of those, because like I said, the point is to kind of lift up the curtain a little bit and maybe talk about some of the decisions that either I made or that other people made that go into that eventual grade that I
Mhm.
I gave myself.
Mhm.
So let's talk about the event. We'll use our jazz hands here.
So both GT and
Like
champs.
like LVO, the
Oh.
entire thing.
Oh.
S-
Okay.
And the reason why I want to talk about this is because there are very few people that are those middlemen between the event that is being run and frontline gaming.
Okay.
Um, And so I hear a lot of people when they do their LVO deep dives talk about, that relationship or specifically like things that they think frontline gaming controls. Uh, and so what I want to first talk about is, you know, when I hear people talk about the event, they talk about that, it costs a lot to go to Vegas. And, I pay X amount of money for a ticket. Where does that money really go?
Mhm.
There's nothing that I personally like to hide if I can avoid it. So that's why I wanted to make sure people understood, like, frontline gaming is responsible for the entire LVO. We
Mhm.
are responsible for our little kingdom that we run in that 3 or 4 day span.
Mm.
And so, we as those game organizers, we talk to Frontline Gaming and we say, "Hey, we want to run an event." And they'll say, "Cool. What kind of event would you like to run?" And then you fill out a little Google form and then you wait.
Okay.
And then eventually that Google form comes back, or somebody emails you, or somebody texts or reaches out, calls, whatever, and they say, "Hey, you're approved to run this kind of event." Now, obviously, if you've got a standing relationship, you've done something with them in the past, there's a little bit of like a rollover effect. They love to use what you used previously and just do it again as a template.
Mhm.
And then if you want to modify, if you want to make something bigger, you want to add, subtract, whatever, then you kind of get into that discussion with them. And then eventually you are able to submit a packet. For them, you get the packet like a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is before the event. If we're talking like the 40K event, which is their
Yeah.
baby, that's the big event at LVO. They had, almost 1,100 people signed up. I don't actually
Jeez.
remember how many showed up on the day, but they had 1,100 people signed up. And so obviously they're extremely invested because unlike us who get to run our little kingdoms, they are directly involved with those events because they want to
Okay.
make sure they're successful because that single 40K event represents half to a third, but I think it's close to half of people that attend the Las Vegas Open.
Wow.
So
Right.
obviously that has a big bearing on their decision-making process. So when you keep that in mind and we start to kind of break some of the stuff that they control down, you can kind of see how they lean, why their focus might be on something that is not your experience at the Las Vegas Open, at a person that is there for Star Wars Legion, because
Mhm.
that is going to be their singular focus. Now, we'll go back a little bit. We submit our packets and eventually tickets go on sale. When the tickets go up, what we present, the information we presented to them when we had that initial discussion, that is what hopefully makes it on the website and what people see.
Mhm.
While you're getting ready for those tickets to go on sale, usually you, the TO, are running around posting, going on podcasts, doing blogs, whatever, talking about your event and releasing what information you can. And then when the tickets go on sale, hopefully everything you said is there. Everything that you printed is still accurate. Nothing has changed in the interim, and the price point that Frontline Gaming has put on your event is acceptable to you and your player base. Because at the end of the day, you, the TO, are not really going to see any of that money. There's not like a flat kickback that just goes straight to the TO. Now,
To the
there
event or
is,
to you personally, like for your payment, do you mean?
yes,
Not at all.
neither.
Oh, jeez.
Now, the
What?
What?
Now, the caveat to that being that there is, because we've got a lot of events with a lot of people that just kind of create this giant nebulous monster that is LVO. Some stuff that is assumed to go back to the staff in terms of their badge being covered. Every badge that they give for free to somebody that is helping judge the event or run the event. So all the 10, 11 staff members that you might have seen running around at LVO, that's $40, $50, $60, whatever a head for the entire weekend that they just eat. So now we've got,
Okay.
let's say $500 to $600 for just my event that is gone. So you start to multiply that by some of the other events. Okay, now you've got the rooms. They've covered X number of rooms. Let's say, again, for a staff of 10 people, 2 people per room, 5 rooms, you pay in the neighborhood of what? $800, $2,000 for
Okay.
that 3 or 4 days at the Rio. So now you've got, what is that? $10,000 plus the $600 we mentioned for badges. So it's not quite a, X equals Y comparison. they are eating some of that cost innately by knowing that they're gonna host this number of judges, take care of this number of people. And so, the reason I bring this up is because again, I see like, hey, it costs this number of dollars to go to this event. What does that mean? Why, does the TO have this much money to spend on prizes and stuff? I want to make sure people understand, like for the LVO, the amount is zero. The direct kickback is nothing at the face interaction with Frontline Gaming.
Jeez.
Now, now you can always ask for things. You can always work with them. You can always say, "Hey, this element is critical to running my event. So can you help me with it?" Or they'll come back to us on occasion and be like, "Hey, we make 1 million plaques for our events. Would you like to ask for a couple of plaques?" So then I can go back to them and I can be like, "Hey, you guys remember the top four in the GT and the top four of the LVOS champs got a plaque?"
Yep,
Hopefully JR remembers that.
I
Yeah.
do. I
Um,
I have it
and
in
there
my garage.
and there was also, I think it was 12 in total, four for the GT, four for the champs, and then four Spirit Awards that we did. So that
Okay.
they paid for those. We didn't have to pay anything for them. We just submitted what we wanted. They made them. They looked great, and we got them. We picked them up on the day.
Okay. And this is
Um,
hearsay, but I heard you didn't, again, hearsay, so but I don't remember who told me this, but somebody said you didn't even confirm you were getting those until you actually had them in hand, though.
no, so I had to submit the categories to them. So I
Okay.
told them I wanted to do a top four for each of the main events.
Hmm.
And I wanted to do four Spirit Awards.
Okay.
But we had this discussion 3 weeks before the event. So like I try to lock stuff in like immediately
Hmm.
when tickets go on sale. I will show, potential sponsors like, "Hey, the event has already sold out and it's been 4 hours. How would you like to be a part of this event? This
Yeah.
guaranteed crowd of people that I have now drawn in." That's usually like I start working that in, the June, July time frame. But, Frontline will do these things in the lead up to the event, depending on how busy they are. So you can kind of start to see maybe the picture form a little bit. Not receiving a direct cut of tickets means that, okay, well, where am I starting for some of the non-GT prizes that we had during the weekend? Because obviously the kit provided for a GT is, shipped, paid for, dealt with between AMG and Frontline,
Right.
but we don't even factor that. So
So, do you mind if I
with
ask a
that,
question real quick?
no, this is the time for questions.
Yeah.
It's literally
So,
why I'm here.
are
I
you
just
allowed
have
to
to
raise the
remember.
ticket price to get something back for you, or no?
So there is something I want to talk about here in a sec, which will
Okay.
probably answer your question.
Cool. Cool.
So let's just get into it because I think I
Yeah.
made the point as far as the cut and whatnot. You can, yeah, like I said, you can kind of ask for stuff with Frontline, and this is something that anybody who's talking about or thinking about running a major event or even a store event should think about asking. Can we modify something to get something else? Kind of where I was going earlier. In this
Okay.
case, can I add $5 a ticket? What does
Okay.
that, extra $400 or whatever get me? Generally speaking, the answer is yes, you can. Um, for this event, we we kind of ran into an interesting problem that hopefully we will not have to repeat before the next one. The person who was running the events for 2025 was not the person in 2024. For those of you
Oh.
that aren't as familiar with Frontline Gaming staff, Kicker, which, yes, that is his name, Kicker was the head of Frontline events, and he left the company in the September, October timeframe, I want to say it was. Um,
Okay.
and so a major factor in planning the events, getting the venues, and making sure they ran smoothly over the last 3 to 4 years. And then that responsibility was transferred to their social and marketing manager, Jake Jacobson, who ended up kind of getting a step up in the company because he was suddenly had to be the events guy. Jake, by the way, did a great job throughout the weekend. But when you lose that person, there are things that you might have asked for that might be lost in
Okay.
translation. Again, That's why I want to bring up, hey, this is their big focus, that 40K event versus us down
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
That conversation that you might have had with that representative, is
Did,
now lost,
did
right?
not get written down, did not go in documentation.
Right.
Got
So
it.
if I say, hey, I want to raise the ticket price by $5 and I want X, Y, and Z concession because we're doing that, that doesn't necessarily mean A, you're going to get it, or B, that it's going to happen by the time your event rolls around. So
And
that's,
C, you never get that money directly.
and well, and so usually we never get money directly for running events. Sometimes things get reimbursed. So we'll be able to say, and I was
Well,
kind of mentioning this earlier,
I
like, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I that is a good thing to talk about. So start with that. But I meant like for the event money that you could get. Like you get $400, so you can put that
Mm.
into the event. But yeah, so you don't get reimbursed, and that's also shocking.
So and again, this is all we're still talking about the conversation that happens in that June, July to January timeframe, just to put us in a time schedule, because we've talked about a lot of different things. Almost everything we've talked about, we're still talking about that 6 months.
Hmm.
So as time goes on, and we've kind of done some initial planning. A lot of your base products are set in stone. You know what the round's going to be, what the format's going to be, how many people are about coming. So you start to work on making sure you've got everything else in line, pricing, terrain, etc., and hyping up the event so people are looking forward to it by the time you get there in January. We start to think about, well, what are those? My Dylan's going to come hang out with us. What are those creative ways that you can start to bridge that gap? Because now we've identified, hey, we're maybe not going to get certain things that we thought we were going to get. Enter the table that we had just to the side of registration where we were selling things throughout the
Hmm.
entire weekend. We have been able to do something that basically no other event at the LVO is allowed to do. And like, remember that 1,000-person 40K event we were talking about earlier?
Hmm.
They don't do this in their hall. We specifically for this event were allowed to sell those mats, the tray mats specifically, the trays themselves, and every single 6x3 mat that was in the hall.
Oh, whoa!
And
So that's going to the tournament, not FLG.
and then that deal suddenly created, cap space where now it's like, okay, 10% of every mat you sell goes back to refunding stuff that you have done their event, or it goes back to help cover the cost for streamers, or you've now earned yourself a 6 hotel room that you have paid for by doing that. So now the dynamic changes because you
Hmm.
have something that you can work with. And we're getting closer and closer to January here. So, Emily jumps in and she designs a little tray mat. We drop graphics and we start to talk to people and drop that, mats in the hall are for sale. I go start reaching out to, hey, A community, B community, C community that drives to the LVO. Maybe you could buy some mats because you can drive them back, which is a lot cheaper than shipping them back. And now we kind of create, okay, a dynamic where we've got a little more play.
Hmm.
The I think the problem with that development and that cycle and how that happened was we reached that point by like the first week of December. 2 years ago, when we originally started selling stuff in the hall, the last time I ran the LVO, we had that agreement in June, July.
Okay. Yeah,
And this
that
goes
makes
back
sense.
to person A being the one in charge of all the events versus person B. So it took a lot longer to get that restarted and confirmed because, like we just talked about, if stuff's going to get lost in translation, hey, let's make sure we've got everything in writing, in an
Hmm.
email, maybe not in
Yep.
a contract. Because not everybody likes contracts. Sometimes they make people feel icky, but at least let's have a paper trail, right?
Something you can point to say, "Hey,
Right.
got it."
Exactly. And so, when you do that, now you have opened up this whole new world where suddenly you can, fix some gaps, upgrade some things, maybe change, the way your event was going to work for the better. But when you do that, and it's the first week of December, and you're now 6 weeks out from your event, that does
Yikes.
make it a little harder to suddenly pick up those things you might have needed to fill in your gaps. So, you know, as you start to break down the year, you can kind of see maybe where some of the problems that you guys identified picked up.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I've really liked, and so now we're gonna jump, we're gonna go to another thing. Uh,
Okay.
I really liked the discussion points that you guys brought up for the prizing.
Mm.
Um, Generally speaking, if it is an official, grand tournament style event, you give away what they give you.
Right.
Uh, I had an official event at LVO 2019 the first time we did it. I don't remember how we became, it wasn't a rally point qualifier, it was something else at the time. I don't know how we got it because we had like 15 people or 10 people signed up when I took over LVO 2019 in August 2018, and got to our eventual, I think it was 62 we had for the first one. Um, but
Wow.
we were given
Yeah.
stuff. We were given stuff and we were
Fire.
told this is what you get. And I was like, that's not good enough. And we just bought a bunch of shit.
And that came out of your pocket.
And we just started, and I mean, there were people that wanted to help, and we had
Hmm.
people that were financially interested in making the event success. So we just all steam ahead, all ships, we all went in. And I got yelled at. I was told,
Oh,
Really?
not naughty dog, don't do that. Hey,
What?
maybe don't use 3D prints as a selling point for your official event. I don't know if anybody remembers there was the Japanese inspired Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker that we gave away as
look at
No.
his
prizes.
face.
I
Look
wasn't
at
even
his
playing
face.
then.
I
What?
want those now.
We didn't challenge you to go
Oh,
yet,
by
JR.
by the way, they were pro painted. They
Oh,
was like
What?
it was like $100
Oh my
each
God.
to
who
get
won
those
them?
painted to the
I need
I
to see these.
this was like 6 years ago now. I don't remember.
Oh man.
Um the poker chip tokens that it started off the whole poker chip order token thing.
Hmm.
That
Wow.
was all of these things. We basically were like, hey, this is what we want to do and we're going to do it. And, eventually it was like, hey, this is an official event. You're not supposed to do that. But we did it anyway.
Mm.
And then the next year comes around and the same thing happened. We grew to a size that was large and in charge. That was the year we did the heats. So we had a heat on Friday, a heat on Saturday kind of thing. And we actually had somebody from Fantasy Flight that attended the event as just like not the Legion event, but the LVO as just kind of a bystander and physically hand carried more prizes to us so we could give more stuff away.
Cool.
And 2020, we didn't, or we did have streaming, and we were even able to broker a deal where, if you guys remember, Fifth Trooper got to show off priorities or vital assets at the LVO. TFT they were showing off some of
Yeah.
the new battle cards and stuff, and then okay, that again causes that internal look to happen. People look at the event from companies that are official and go, well,
Hmm.
wait a sec. What's that unofficial thing you used around our Lucasfilm licensing license? And so
Mm.
I don't think that balance between the two get underscored enough
Mm.
and, kind of understand how when you put something custom out there on an official event, how it could always be scrutinized. And that kind of stuff that's the kind of thing that I have to think about. That is a decision I have to make, but good good leaders assume risk. And
Hmm.
I was willing to assume that risk and, still keep the stuff coming and coming. And the hits kept coming and they didn't stop coming. And so what did we do for LVO, now 2021? Well, we didn't do anything because that was COVID and everything got
Yeah.
canceled for LVO 2021, so we forgot about it.
Yeah.
But then the next year came around. We had LVO 2022, an event which I hope JR remembers fondly.
I
Probably
do.
not.
My
We
favorite
rooted
year.
for
My favorite
him.
year.
We rooted for him so hard.
And for us, that was like the reawakening. So of course, we spent way too much money on the event, on prizing and swag and things for you and things for me, things for everybody. I mean, we gave we gave prizes and stuff to judges because I, was so appreciative that they'd help me run the event that were custom. I mean, we just did it all. And at the end of the event, when I was talking to people about the prizes and about this stuff, we did a big survey that year. And of course, and prizing was on the survey. And, the reactions to the prizes for 2022, there were still people that were saying that, it wasn't enough, or I didn't like X prize, I didn't like Y
Wow.
prize. And
Oh,
I
What?
know that seems to blow you away now when you think about it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you compare it to, what we offered this last LVO. And that really made me realize that I shouldn't give a shit about prizing.
Oh.
Not that I shouldn't do prizing,
Mhm.
but that I shouldn't put, self-value, self-worth on prizing. Because
Mhm.
in those, the 2019, 2020, and then now 2022 LVO, we had created a nuclear arms race. And we were starting to like really just kind of overshadow some of the, some of the majors that were happening across the country. And, it's like, it's capitalism. Other businesses want to improve to match the product we are putting out. So there is an effect where other people are improving their game, but we're also at the same time creating an impossible standard that, it is difficult to reach and, exceed every
Mhm.
year. Where we have
Mhm.
now shot future us in the foot by doing that. So then we get to 2023.
Best
2023 is a
prizing
great time.
ever. Awesome.
We have to up the ante again because I didn't learn my lesson. And what happens? The same stuff, the same feedback, the same comments. The new core rulebook drops that month, and we have,
Yeah.
2 weeks to get running.
Mhm.
And AMG comes to me because at the time, I'm doing the articles, I'm in the rules forum, I'm now closer to the company than I've ever been, and like, hey, this is coming, and this is when we want to drop it. Is that okay? Because we like you and you run a big event, so we wanted to ask. And I was like, send it. So we do it,
Yeah.
so we
So
do
so
it.
you're to blame.
He
So we
told us at that event we were crash
Oh yeah.
dummies. He
Oh,
got on the
okay.
Yeah, I mean
mic and
pretty
he's like, "You
much.
guys are crash dummies."
So then we run it, and we've got this big orb in the center of the event, the big shiny that everybody looks at. The new rules, we talk about it, generates a lot of discussion. We learn a lot about terrain and how terrain should interact in the core rulebook era. Um, and we do that. We do the surveys again, and prizing is once again not enough, or I don't like this, or there's
That's
something else that I
crazy.
wanted. And I know, and I could go back, I have the receipts, we could pull up the surveys to talk about them, but
That's
We
it's
got
going to
plenty to
take
talk
three
crazy.
about. We
it's
don't
going
need
to take three
receipts.
hours if we do.
LVO 23 prizing was my favorite prizing, and Jared can tell you, I still use the 23 markers. I still use a lot of my
Mhm.
20 my clear dice. Like I refuse. People hate them. I don't care. These are the coolest dice I've
Oh,
ever
I hate the
gotten. I'm not
clear.
gonna use
Yeah,
anything
that
else.
was
Like
the
that was
year
a
that I was
great
shipped somewhere in between, in the range of 2,000 dice,
Oh
Wow.
my.
because
love it.
Courtney was like, empty the warehouse. Um,
Bring it
and we
here.
did, and we did.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the benefits of LVO being at the end of the season, is sometimes you get that extra kick in the pants. Anyway, so we've told ourselves, hey, maybe drop it down a little bit throughout the course of the following year. We don't drop it down a little bit. 2024 happens. That is all Jordan's baby from start to finish. I inform him
Yeah.
on my process. I connect him with Frontline. He helps connect other Legion TOs with Frontline and runs as that North American intermediary that helps them get their events set up with Frontline for their 6, 7 events they run throughout the year. And then he runs a great LVO. And then I get to come back. I come back in April of 2024. I do some initial LVO planning after the LVOIS stuff goes out to the world, which we covered here first.
Mm. Yep.
And then principal LVO stuff kicks off, and we have tickets go on sale in June, July. Um, and you know what I was able to gather for this LVO, I think, is finally maybe not the scales balancing, because it wasn't perfect and there were things that I want to improve, which we'll talk about in a second. But I
Okay.
think it was more of a, I would call it a return to what normal might look like. Because you guys talked about it on the podcast. When we talk about the GT, I don't really count the GT because I can't control the GT.
Yeah.
We do technically break some rules by providing some of the custom trophies and things we did from Jerry's Game Shop that went to the GT.
Interesting. That's
Now,
breaking the rules.
well, it's not, it's not
Frowned
really
upon.
breaking the rules. It's not as frowned upon because of the nature of it. Again, we're not giving it really, you're not giving away direct replacement of an AMG product by
Right.
doing a fun trophy. So
Mhm.
like, yeah, should you not give away stuff that is not their official stuff, their official events? Probably not. Are they really
Yeah.
going to scrutinize it, care, bust your balls about it? No, not really. At the end of the day, they are just people and they've also got other stuff to do. So the AMG police are not going to come kick down your door because you gave away a custom trophy. If if your stream that officially represents the event has a bunch of 3D printed stuff and you talk about, hey, here's a website where you can go buy this thing that's a direct replacement of an AMG miniature, maybe you should avoid that on your official stream. Heads up, by the way, burgeoning TOs that might have streaming at their events.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so let's just focus on the LVOIS because that's the big one
Okay.
that you guys, well, most of you guys here on the podcast tonight were able to attend.
Yeah, Jose.
Come on, Jose.
Yeah, Jose.
Man, family, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, you should have plenty of money
so
for next year with how much you're painting for JR.
so what I really liked is that that view that it is a competition first. Um,
Thanks, Nick.
that's almost never how I think about things. Because I'm more community driven. I'm, people focused. I'm trying to create a product that people enjoy and have fun at because that creates the FOMO that makes
Hmm.
people want to come next year. Uh, but obviously, prizing can play a big part of that because people will take stuff home and they'll go back to their home store and they'll be like,
Hmm.
"Hey, look at this cool thing I got," and you'll want to go to the LVO next year.
Mhm.
But I think at its core, and moving forward, we'll transition to 26 for this second. I won't, I would expect it to not be insane pricing because, you know, it's very unusual to go to a tournament and receive something every single round.
Oh, I agree.
We have created a
Yeah.
nuclear arms race
Yeah.
by creating a prize structure where something gets thrown
Mm.
at you every single round.
Which
That is
is,
not sustainable over the long term when you're talking about an event where, go back to the beginning of the conversation, starts with zero funding.
yeah.
So, LJ, I just gotta say, like, it's so funny that you're bringing this up and you're putting things in
Uh,
perspective to me because your LVO tournament is the first big tournament I've ever been to in my life. Like, Legion is my first war game, miniature game I've ever played. And so when I went to LVO and I was bragging to the guys, like when I came back, 'cause they didn't go with me that year, I was just like, yeah, guys, you guys get stuff every round. And that was like my hyping point. I was just like, you get all this cool stuff and everything, and like, you don't even have to win. And then yeah, you
Well,
definitely started something
We
that
were
just like,
bamboozled.
yeah, it was like,
yes.
this
no,
is this is the
and
norm, guys.
one with the GTs, that is the norm because the kit, it's up to the TOs on how they
Hmm.
distribute the stuff. But most TOs, I imagine, say, hey, I'm going to give you a little bit every round is so that you stay. Right.
Right.
I'm not going to give you all the dice round one because then you're just going to show up and like some of you will just leave. Right. So,
Now,
but
depending on the year, depending on the kit, depending on the TO, there's a lot of
yeah.
factors. There are guidelines, general rules, and suggested times that you should give prizing with the GT event. But that's still, in my eyes, going to be part of the problem moving forward because that is the quote unquote official standard.
In the
And
competition.
even though LVOIS, the champs, is not an official event, we're still probably going to be a Legion event in the same hall as some sort of official Legion event like the GT. But I am going to see it differently moving forward, especially after, having a long, hard think about it. And, that's why I appreciate your guys' takes because it really made me think about how I want to approach 26. It's not to say that we don't want to do stuff for everybody. We did the card sleeves for everybody because I wanted
Mhm.
to thank everybody for showing up.
And those were
So
cool.
I bought the card sleeves and I told Emily, I was like, hey, so I do the rules forum. I help moderate the AMG Discord. I also write the Legion articles. The money that I get for that, because those things do generate a very small amount of income, that's basically my personal hobby budget each month.
Okay.
I was like, hey, I'm going to take these things and I'm going to use them to buy prizes for LVO. So that was like one of the first things I did was I set that money aside and it just kind of sat there. Then we picked up Jerry's Game Shop and I said, hey, I want you to be a sponsor for the LVOIS. I want to use LVO as a test bed and then I want you to provide prizes for the next season and I want to build a package of prizes that TOs can buy to support their events. And so he was like, hey, these are the cool things I want to do. And so there's some element of the prizing for the LVOIS too that is a reflection of who we picked to be the principal sponsor. We told Jerry and Jerry's Game Shop, this is what we want to do. This is the number of people I expect to have. And so he said, hey, here's these products that I can provide. And here's the price point if you want to buy these products. And so we picked the one at the time that met our budget. We're still
Mhm.
talking about the June, July, August, September timeframe where our budget is still zero.
You're right.
So we pick a package that makes the most sense at the time and we buy it. And it provides stuff for essentially your top 16. And we
Mhm.
broke that up a little bit. We tried to make it a little more economical, but it still doesn't provide something for every single round. And I will say that I don't think I would expect that to be the standard moving forward because it's just not sustainable over the long term. Now, can we make a deal? Can we sell stuff in the hall? Can we do stuff to bolster that pricing? Yes, and we will. But rather than try to emulate LVO 2023, which I agree is God's perfect little LVO in my mind, and it will live on forever, right next to LVO 2019 when we
That
were
was
in the
my first
sky view.
LVO.
You
I got the
know,
JR treatment.
you did.
It's all
Um,
free.
we okay, let's take a step back then. And what are the best elements of those pricing, that pricing structure that we can maybe apply to LVO 26 to still capture some of the stuff that people really liked? Uh, and deployment markers are a sticking point for me. When you
Yeah.
guys talked about the deployment markers, it hurt my soul because I had a vendor for the deployment markers, and it didn't work out.
Oh.
Oh,
And that, when that happens, where we have a plan and the plan does not execute to where we want it to be, that is a failure on our part. That's how we see it.
Mhm.
Um, and that's really that's a bummer because most people, unless I show a picture and I promise something, most people don't know that that thing was even coming, which to me
Mhm.
makes it even worse because it could have been something that they, would have had to look forward to otherwise.
Mhm.
So I think what we're gonna do for next LVO is we're gonna try to focus on stuff like the deployment, or we'll probably call them territory markers because that's what it is now for
Oh, I didn't know they'd change
LVO.
names.
Well, you don't deploy anymore. You
That's
just walk
fair.
on the
Yeah,
board. You
that's
have a
true. Yeah.
territory. Maybe you should pick up and read a secondary sometime, Rob. Maybe you would have won more games during LVO. I don't know.
That's you know what? That's
Rob
definitely
doesn't like to
fair.
read till he's
Or
in the
breakthrough.
game.
I'm gonna
Then
play
he
more
starts
breakthrough games
reading.
before next year, okay? Like
It's okay. Just blame circles next time. It'll make you feel better. So maybe let's grab the things that people really liked and let's try to build that into our plan from June
Mhm.
instead of those following months, and
So, quick question, LJ.
let's do those things for everybody, do a couple of those things, but still stick to the spirit of the competition by providing prizes for the top 8, the
Mhm.
people who are 4-1 by the end of round 5 and above. And when you go to the next one, also build that expectation within the players so
Yeah.
they know that it's not going to mirror LVO 2023.
Mm.
Go ahead, Jose.
So I missed the boat on the poker chip order tokens. Are you ever, maybe not this year, but ever anywhere down the line, are you ever considering doing like another set like that? Like, like one time only, it's for this year,
Or
and you
maybe
got
selling something
another
like that.
yeah, selling something like that. I
So
would buy it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, I still have the contact for who does those. Every once in a while, a community lead will reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I know you did the poke chip tokens in the past. Who'd you work with?" And I've worked with two different vendors over the past 6 years. One of them is actually in California,
okay.
and they did the poker chips for the SoCal community that I was part of.
Oh, I
And
have those are amazing. Those
yeah,
I love those. The
so
dewbacks in the back.
yeah, so there's one set of tokens that from the second vendor that I worked with that they're more prone to chipping. The original
Mm.
set is much that they base theirs off of is much heftier, and you can kill a man with the set. Um,
Dang.
we we love that vendor, but because it's heavier, it is more expensive. And
Yeah.
it's we last time we did them, we did 2 to 3 thousand chips.
Hmm.
And that was like $4,000 or something like that.
Ooh.
I'd have to look at the receipts, but
Jeez.
What's the
it
name
is
of that company?
expensive. That so I let's talk about it. This is great because I love telling people this, and now I don't have to say it in a DM anymore. If you want to get custom poker chips made and you are willing to work with your community to make it happen,
Let's
go
do it,
to
boys.
BR
Yeah.
Pro
Yep.
Poker.
Mhm.
Bravo Romeo Pro Poker. They do
.com
custom,
presumably.
I have the
yeah,
website if you guys need it.
yeah, brpropoker.com, very easy. They have a section for custom chips, and you want the 39 millimeter chip, which I believe is the smallest size they offer right now. Um, the reason we went
Yeah.
with BR Pro originally is because they just charge by how many chips that you buy. They don't
Mhm.
Hmm.
care about the facings, and the
Oh,
symbols and stuff.
That's sick.
Plus, we've
yeah.
referred so many people to them over the last 6 years that if I think, and I think this still works, nobody has said it doesn't work yet. So I assume it still works. If you email them when you're doing your order and you say, "Hey, I'm here for Star Wars Legion, LJ Pena sent me," they should have all of the files for the rank icons.
I
Still,
Oh,
they
I
should, they
literally
should
I
have all that.
literally just emailed them saying the exact same thing you just said, and they're just like, "Yeah, we
already
got it."
just
Yeah.
within the pod, the 1 minute, you're just
No, no,
like,
no, no,
boom.
no. I reached out earlier this week or last week,
Oh,
something
because
like
you
that.
So
you
Yeah,
DM'd them
did you
already.
tell them
yeah,
that
yeah.
about
I
the,
told them. I go,
and they
hey,
still have the symbols?
yeah. They go, hey,
Ah,
LJ sent me
perfect.
here,
There
so
you
they know.
go.
Yeah,
Verified.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, because I need
We
some
have
new
landed
tokens.
this.
yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so if you want to do that, which yes, unilaterally is still, I think, one of the best things we've ever done because people have now gone and made their own tokens with their own logos and their communities and their stuff on it. Um, we love BR Pro Poker. If you are like us and you buy 3,000 or more poker chips, which most communities probably will not do,
No.
it is only 75 cents a chip. If you buy 25 to 99 tokens, which is like, we were doing tokens in sets of 20, so that's 5 sets of tokens. There, it's $1.75 a chip. So the price varies, pretty quickly, depending on the quantity that you order. But again, we love them because they charge by the total number of chips. So we were doing
That's
sets of
awesome.
20, which covered all your base ranks, but we also added a couple custom ones in there that could be freestyle to help deal with some of the battle forces that were coming out at the time. You can do that with them. So yes, that's that's a great place for this prizing session to go because those are again still one of the coolest things that any Legion community can do to make themselves look awesome at an
Oh
event
yeah.
is have their
We
own
got to
custom
get
poker chips.
So
we
for the so as a quick comparison, so when I bought the ones from SoCal,
Hmm.
what we ended up paying per set, which I'm seeing right here, is about, let me see, it's about $32 per set, including
Hmm.
shipping. So
Hmm.
like that was with a 79. No, I think yeah, it was 79 per chip. You're locally probably looking at not getting that many, right? Because I think he had like over almost 2,000 sold. So like probably a little bit of like $40, $45 per set of those tokens for an individual community, maybe even up to 60, which like isn't like for pricing is way out of reach. Because that's like the entire ticket cost, which we've already talked about LJ not getting, but for your community, people willing to pay that. That's not too bad.
Yeah, we had 60. It was 62 at LVO 2019. I think we produced like 70 sets of tokens for that event, and that was like $3,000.
Wow.
Like just straight off the top. So again, I like to use nuclear arms race for a reason.
Yeah, makes sense.
There was
I did have a
mysterious benefactor that helped us reach that point, and I
I
will
did have
leave
a
them
question.
nameless.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you make IS an official AMG thing? Have you
No, they
talked
won't
to them?
allow them.
So I will say that A, I mean the answer is no.
Hmm.
But B, the other answer is I don't want to.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Whoa. Okay.
I like that we have full control of this system and we get to do what we want to do with it.
Mhm.
This season we added team events, so you can run a team event and that can count as a qualifier. We added support for the tournament organizer to play in their own event. They just can't be the recipient of the invite. But they can still earn points, which helps those
Okay.
forever TOs maybe attend champs. Um, and we took some of those feedback points from throughout the year and upgraded it. We would probably lose those additions if we ever had some sort of official connection. But taking it one level higher than just Legion, again, the LVOIS is not my creation.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was not my idea.
Right.
That was Tyson. Tyson, who runs the MCP side of the LVIS, he was the one who started it. And so, we would also have to make them stop doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
And look, guys, you think our Legion community has a thing about chess clocks and talking about chess clocks every time somebody takes too long to make an activation? The
Jose would never play
MCP,
with the chess clock because he'd always be like, what is it? You can't do anything after your time is run out. So Jose would be sitting there for half the game just doing nothing.
the
And my
MCP
dice would be
community,
blinking.
like they have self-selected themselves to not receive GT status because they would rather run an event with chess clocks than lose
Really?
out on that by having it be a GT and have to use the challenger event document.
So chess clocks for LVO, is that what I'm hearing for the champs?
So, well, we haven't talked about 26 yet, so we'll wait till
Okay,
we
we'll
get
get
there.
there. We'll get
Because I have some questions about 26.
there.
That's okay. And so I don't think they'd ever go for it. And like I
Yeah.
said, I don't necessarily want to because I like that we had an idea that we kept on the back burner for 2 years back with, Kicker, who we mentioned earlier. Kicker wanted to have, hey, let's have a thing where people attend frontline events and get points and get invites and play in a special invite only event at LVO. And I was
Mhm.
like, no, because I'm about to go on another deployment and I'm not going to set this up and then saddle somebody else to do it while I'm over in Kuwait, sucking it up in the humidity. And then as soon as I got back from stupid Kuwait, what happened? World is no longer worlds. We're not doing invites. And it was like, bam, hit the big red button. Let's go. We've already got that shit lined up. Let's go.
It was perfect when you guys announced it too.
We we would lose a lot of that by going official. And
Mm.
we can react to things much faster because we're not. We can try to mold our events and our standards towards what we think the community wants a little more effectively because we are a smaller team that is we are Legion players that have been Legion players for a long time that are built into the connective tissue of this game. That those are all things we would lose if that ever changed. So I like that I like that you addressed it because that is something that does come up in conversation.
Hmm.
So we're not done with 25 yet. That corpse hasn't cooled.
No, we haven't even talked terrain yet.
I'll try to make the terrain section a little quicker because I think
Sure.
the answer is easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
96 tables is a lot of fucking terrain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
How many events? We
No
talked
arguments
about
there.
just a tad precast. How many tables? Quiz time. Or how many tables? How many events have had to have 96 tables of terrain?
Well,
Two.
we already know the answer because we talked about it before the
Yeah,
pod, but
two.
What? I didn't
I,
hear that.
yeah.
Worlds last year, 2024, and
Mhm.
LVO 2025. Uh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, for those of you who aren't as familiar with what we have done over the last couple of years, Frontline Gaming keeps Legion terrain for us in their warehouse. And over the last 5 years, I have grown that inventory personally at great cost and through many sponsorship dollars by other people. I'd grown it to 64, 63 tables, 66 tables, something in that range.
Mhm.
And that was at the end of LVO 2024 when Jordan was all said and done. And
Yeah.
we sent it back to the warehouse. We, dusted it off, and then the year went on, and we got to July 2024, and the 2.6 rule set dropped, and Lone Star Open happened. And Jordan, who was there, was able to take a step back and be like, "Hey, I'm going to go through the entire thing, and I'm going to annotate on every single table what I think it needs or can be improved or what needs to be repaired because we've had these tables sitting in Nevada for 3 or 4 years,
Mhm.
and what needs to be upkept." And so after that happened, and I physically saw the stuff in January, we went from, let's call it 65 tables to 52 tables. So
Ouch.
13
Ooh.
entire 6 foot by 3 foot Legion tables were cannibalized just just like that. We
I've
lost a
Yeah.
had that
bunch of
happen.
tables right away.
Hmm.
So that happened
Well, I
because no. So that happened for good reason. That
yeah.
happened because 2.6 requires more terrain.
I was gonna say, and you got hit with another rulebook change
Yeah.
that
And
yeah.
so now suddenly, okay, there's a safety net that is gone because when I started planning the event in June, again, we're going to talk about the timeline. When we started, setting up the event in June, we were going off a certain assumption. And in my mind, I thought, hey, we're gonna have 128 for, what the GT or whatever the GT ends up being called. That's completely covered by the frontline inventory. So over the next 6 months, I'm gonna have to grow the inventory by 32 tables. Bet, I got it, no problem. Then 60, 30 to 60 days rolls around and I've now lost 13 tables. So
Mm.
now instead of having to make 32 tables, now I have to make 45 tables. Okay, we're already trending in the wrong direction. This is no bueno. And so what do? We try to, ask Frontline for money and some support, or maybe, hey, we split it 50-50 because this stuff lives in your warehouse and this goes and helps all your other events. But to them, that's not a great investment
Hmm.
because, their biggest Legion events that are non-LVO are capped at 64 people, probably landing in the mid 50s at the biggest events. Most of
Mhm.
them are 32, which means to them you only need 16 tables. So why does it matter if you have more than 52 tables? You already got the 16 you need to run Atlantic City Open. You already got the 32 tables you need to run Lone Star Open. So to them, it's not a great investment. Now, the person that I was having that discussion with is was generally good at that kind of tit for tat, hey, let's try to make it work for both parties relationship,
Mhm.
but he's only at frontline for a couple more months. So
Oh.
what else gets lost in this 6, 7 month transition? The financial support for more terrain. Because for LVO 2023, we were able to talk to a company and be like, hey, make 20 tables for us. And they were like, yes. And they did. And it was glorious. And we grew our
Mhm.
inventory by a factor.
Yeah.
We don't have that support for this time because we don't have the monetary, you know, support that we need to pay for that. And now, as we move the timeline again a little bit forward, we get to August 2024, where I have moved to Florida. And so I'm not exactly going to be spending money from the house sale on growing terrain for LVO 2025. It's just not very
Mhm.
Hmm.
realistic. I don't think anybody would ask anybody to do that.
No.
And so not only do we have less support from Frontline maybe than I thought we'd have, we'd also have less support from me
Mhm.
because I'm not necessarily going to be spending the same amount of money that I am on the lead up to the event. And so time goes on and things fall to the wayside a little bit because we've got all this movement going on. and then kicker leaves, and then it's like, hey, we are getting close to the event. We've talked to maybe some communities about bringing terrain, but what can we do to kickstart this if finance isn't an option? Now we have the table competition and me reaching out
Yeah.
to yourself, Rob, and
Yeah.
the Arizona community, the SoCal community, the Northern California communities, the Las Vegas community, and the Colorado community.
Mm,
And this is something that I learned in transition because I've honestly never done it before, and we thought, hey, maybe it would entice people to bring a table if we put something down on the line.
mm,
And so, more seriously than we've ever done it before, we started approaching sponsors to try to get some sort of gift card or prize or something. And this is another lesson that I think any TO can take away from this discussion. It costs anywhere from, let's say, $200 to $400 to produce an adequate Legion table, depending on how nice it is, terrain, your printer, your
Yeah.
access, your paint, all
yeah.
that good stuff. $200 to $400 is my mindset that I approach this
Hmm.
problem with.
Yeah.
Accurate.
I gave you know, $100 to the person that won the terrain competition.
Wow.
Oh,
We got 32, well, we technically got like 35, whatever tables,
Mm,
for just the LVIS, and like 45 tables, I think was the community tally. We got
nice.
45 tables from the community for $200 to $250.
Yeah,
man.
that's pretty good. And
Yeah.
personally, I liked the community tables better because they
Yeah.
most of them were prepared more adequately because it's individual. It's my table. I want it to be right for the new game. But I know
Yes.
some people thought the opposite, and I thought they were wrong. But
Well, and that's the there are two wolves inside me kind of conversation.
yeah,
I like the stuff we have built with Frontline, but also, as you guys now know, it's gotten fairly cannibalized because it's an inventory that's had to grow over time.
yeah,
But I also like I respect the community being like, hey, we have put our stuff out on the line for you to play on and have a good time with, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that helps us cover the gap a little bit. But then you can kind of see now, as we've talked about a couple different things, where the seams are, where you can
yeah.
start to see the gaps as they grow because, the previous or 2 years prior, we just bought 20 tables like that, and that helps
Mm,
expand the inventory indefinitely versus having to go to sponsors and be like, hey, can you sponsor some gift cards, Monument? And we can give those to people to try to, convince them to bring tables. So people bring tables, and the community
yeah.
response is fantastic. We get whatever we want to use where we want for
Hmm.
the LVOS champs, and it even covers some gaps at the back end of the GT. Because again, I thought I
Yep.
had enough terrain to cover the GT intrinsically within Frontline Gaming, and that wasn't the case. We needed,
Oh, you used some of those tables the day before? Because
well,
I wasn't
yeah.
there the day before. Okay.
So the community tables were like the last 12 tables of the GT.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
And then and then the champs were all
Hmm.
the community stuff. So you can kind of, you can kind of frame the way you think about terrain the event with with those things in mind, with hey, this is the inventory we had when we started. This is the
Hmm.
gap we were trying to cover. This is the steps we took to remedy it. And this is the problem we were trying to solve, which is, can you produce 96 tables? Did we do that? Yep, we did. Did we do that to a 2.6 standard? Mostly. Um, you know, I will say that I feel like I hear a lot about terrain, and terrain being not so great when we are setting up and within the span of the first like 24 hours when people don't have anything else better to think about.
Mhm.
Um, Look, those naysayers were probably out there. This was the first year in 6 years I have not been bombarded by terrain stuff when I was setting up and running the first couple days of an event. Again,
Really?
were those people out there? Did people have concerns, questions, comments? Absolutely. But I was so happy with the initial discussion. And that's why I wanted to make sure I mentioned like the that I value what people are saying during the event while we are there, while we are in person, and even on streams and stuff. There was a lot of positive commentary around the terrain. Um, can we improve the terrain and what we put on the tables? Absolutely. And so that's not like an LVO 2025 to LVO 26 thing. That's just a thing you always try to do better
Hmm.
Right.
as
Mhm.
an event runner. That's never oh, we're gonna be better next year thing. It's just you are always better next year because hopefully you learn something from the previous year and you apply those lessons. I think this year we got a little reset because of 2.6 and we're now planning for POIs in, and if you didn't know this, POIs go in an SOS pattern
Hmm.
on the board if you ever want to know where to put them on a board.
Mm.
And also just talking about, you need more scatter than you used to. There are people's opinions on how much line of sight blocking you have on a table have changed pretty significantly. And then, real and the way that you have to be covered to get cover
Hmm.
has changed, which also, as you commented on quite fervently, Rob, makes certain shapes less valuable.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to fix by replacing stuff wholesale in a lot of cases, which, as we've talked about in the lead up to this moment, is very expensive and frankly not feasible when you're just trying to hit your number before you
Hmm.
take a step back and go, okay, now how can we make this stuff look better? Now that we've put it all on the table and Emily went and took a picture of every single table we had at the LVO, what we did, and here's another great behind the curtain thing for TOs out there. How do you organize 96 tables?
96 boxes, right?
Is that it? You just have boxes? Like, uh, so there's just boxes sitting somewhere. That's it. That's your system. Good job,
Uh,
Rob.
okay,
All
well,
right,
okay. So the
JR,
boxes.
JR, what's your answer to the question? JR, how would you organize 96 tables?
I mean, I
How?
could have more to that. Like that's
No,
just
no,
the
no. Your
basics,
time is
but
gone. JR.
Man, you put me on the spot. How would I order 96 tables?
All right, so you don't even have an answer. Jose,
I
you had
mean,
the most time to answer. What's your answer?
You're speaking of organizing the table, like in terms of like the table itself.
No, I'm talking about a physical solution to organize your shit. Not
Oh man,
distribution, not how you put the terrain on the board. What do you do for 96
you
tables?
gotta stuff it in a back room somewhere.
So, so what we did this year that I think it not only helps us, but it actually helps every single person that works with the frontline inventory as TOs, is we have a single Google Sheet, just one.
Like Rome was
And,
talking about.
And Rob, you also probably saw a version of this, but I don't think you've now seen it in its final form.
okay.
Um, on the first day, on Thursday, while we were setting up, there was one guy that was looking at every single table and then going to the sheet and organizing the sheet based on what was actually put out there. So once we had had a little bit of time to dump stuff out and put mats down, we had one person that went through and went, okay, table one, this is the name of the table, this is the frontline mat. He grabbed the frontline mat off their website, put it on that line, and then wrote like a note like, hey, this table could use more scatter, this table could use more line of sight blocking. So then for all 53 boxes or 52 boxes, whatever, you have a, a crate somewhere
Hmm.
with a box number. The terrain has some sort of name or biome associated with it, and you can see what frontline mat is supposed to go with that table.
Oh,
You
nice.
also have notes for how that table can be improved for the future. Add more this, fix this element, whatever. And finally, the coup de grace, and the reason why I liked the fact that you brought up the album so much, is when you click on that biome, that name of the table, it shows you the picture from LVO 2025 that Emily took.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Nice.
So that,
That's
my friends, is how you organize 96 tables. And guess
nice.
what? That method is just multiplication. You
Right.
can do that for 8 tables. You can do that for
Right.
16, 32, 64, 128 tables. However many tables you want, you can just take that and you can just multiply it. And so
Hmm.
now what all of the 6 or 7 frontline Legion TOs have is they have access to this sheet that shows them when let's say you're a TO that has never worked with Frontline before, and you say, "Hey, I'm going to run." Let's use an example. I'm going to run the Cherokee Open, which is this weekend, and they show up to the event, and they haven't picked up or bought or brought a single piece of terrain, single board, mat, whatever. They
Mhm.
show up and they're handed that sheet, and they can now
Nice.
see what table is in what box number and what frontline mat you're supposed to pair it up with, and have a general idea of what the terrain should look like on the table.
That's really cool. And I'm assuming you numbered all the boxes and all that stuff as well.
Right. So the last
Nice.
thing that happened on Sunday was the judges, a couple of the judges were standing as we created a little human conveyor belt that checked the box, relabeled the box, and put the box on a pallet to go back to
That's
frontline.
awesome.
That's awesome.
And so now that we've done that critical foundational relook at the terrain, I think now we can start to address some of the comments that were brought up, where we can start to talk about, hey, this map has a lot of these shapes. How can we fix that? This map is missing line of sight blocking. What are generic things that we can print that could go on any table, like shipping containers that can add more
Mhm.
linear line of sight blocking? This table doesn't have a single scrap of impassable terrain, so let's print out, a mire or a pit or something, or sarlacc that can just get thrown on your average desert table, right? And
Yeah,
start to grow and, fix some of those problems. And so I think that's something that we'll now be able to do. And at the same time, we can take that product and we can give it to other people so they can recreate it for their own means, and do it for their own event. Because again, if you are that local TO that you have 4 or 8 tables or whatever, this system still applies, and you can use that to track, manage, and grow your inventory.
nice. And so now
And
you
I
just have to hope that an entire year goes by with however many TOs using it, that it comes back to you just as you left it.
Exactly. It's like I send off my baby to like 6 different houses each year and hope it comes back in one piece. Yes, exactly. Don't
Yeah.
if Dylan's still around the corner, hopefully you didn't hear me say that.
No,
So
but
and so then you do that, and I think that can address a lot of the things that you guys tore apart. The only thing specifically that I think I'd call out is that, you know, the pictures that you guys were using for that discussion was just um the picture that Emily took at the time,
Mhm.
which was either in the wee hours, the 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. hours before you guys entered the hall, or the 11 p.m. plus hours after people had left the hall. So it wasn't like we tried to do it very close to when the judges did a pass. So I'm not going to
Mhm.
totally excuse some things, but it's my wife who does not play Legion who was like, "Hey, let's take the pictures." Not somebody going, "Hey, is this in the perfect configuration forever before we take a picture?"
Sure. As is
And
it, which I had firsthand experience with during the event. Like,
right.
this is what the photo looks like. This is the table in front of me. Completely different.
Yeah. And so that's one of those things that, like, when people go back and look at them, I want to make sure they frame it that way and be like, okay, well, when was this picture taken? Did somebody set a bag down on the table and push stuff around? Did somebody touch the terrain in between games? I think not enough people maybe talk about that, but the discussions that I do like a lot and that I do value a lot is the distribution. Talking about where you put X piece of terrain, how you can create, improve, um, diffuse a firing line by putting this
Mhm.
line of sight blocking here. Do you put that height 2 piece of terrain in the center of the board now that climbing works how it works? Are
JR
there
says
enough?
yes, but only because he plays Geos.
Always.
JR says yes because he's not a coward, but also because he plays Geos. And so I like that. That's the discussion I like to have around the buildings. Now that we've talked about the logistics and the boring admin side of things, now we can also take those pictures. We can assume that most of those tables probably looked like that during the course of the event, or at least enough of the terrain for us to say, hey, uh, TO that is running the Cherokee Open, I've made a note on the sheet that says table 32 was reviewed very poorly by the community. So when you set it out, take a new picture and show me how you set it up, and we can see if maybe
Nice.
that's a better setup. And that's something that can now, grow over time, and could be a little more fluid rather than stagnant.
Nice. And so are you keeping, probably not, but like every table, is it like you have all the photos with it in the table specifically? Like you can see
Correct.
back to back to back. Oh, that's cool. So you can say like
Yes.
this is what it was at LVO, then the next year. So maybe
Yeah, if
next year we get
they're
to look at like 25 LVO, 26 LVO, same table. Like that'd be kind of
yeah.
cool to do some
So and
change.
as that iterates, I think that'll be something that'll improve those setups a lot over time, and hopefully will fix some of the points that were brought up, but also allow us to, like I said, maybe identify some outliers and either gracefully push them off into the sunset or add things that can improve them as tables overall.
All right.
Dope.
Right on.
So
So
I'm
there's terrain.
looking hopeful in the 26th round. Is it going to be safe to bring dewbacks? That's the
Well,
question.
you know, Dewbacks will be able to jump 2 in 2026. So,
Oh, let's go.
oh no, I've spoiled it. The jig is up. They have those little wings that they put on Namor's ankles that allow the Dewbacks to gracefully float over the battlefield.
Uh,
So, prizes, terrain, general logistical things. Is there any other? I mean, those are definitely the big three, so I like to stick
Yeah.
to those. But are there any
yeah.
other LVO 2025 things? Oh, damn it. I thought about it. I should have
Yeah.
thought about it. This is my fault. Jose,
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yes.
No.
you know what one of my favorite things just ever is?
I'm about to
Apple
find
pie?
out.
Um, I'm sure you're familiar with the first Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah, all-time
And,
favorite, Tobey Maguire. Yes.
and by first, we're of course referring to Tobey Maguire.
The best, yes.
Of course.
I I bring this up all the time, and I'll look at somebody and I'll go, I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
I thought I was gonna get off this cast
And
unscathed. Dang it.
and all I could think about was was your comments about judging,
Yes.
and generally how you run that. And so here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna start with a cop out, and we'll talk about my actual thoughts.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Uh,
just giving me the bird. Okay. Well, we can talk.
well, no, no, I wanna make sure people, because this is another thing that I think
Yeah.
we don't get that peek behind the curtain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I like to throw those thoughts out there because it helps stimulate other people's thoughts because they either like it and run with it or they're like, nah, I hate that. Let's do something else. Both options are perfectly valid. Um, I was not the head judge for LVO 2025. And so what when you run the staff for that size event, I lean heavily on the head judge to kind of be like the guy in charge on the day. I
Mhm.
spend 6 to 8 months working on the event, so during the event, I don't actually have to do anything
Okay.
because why else did I spend 6 to 8 months working on the event? Now,
Hmm.
I was very busy during the event, of course. You never get away from that. But I also, when I do that and I do that correctly, I also get to enjoy seeing people I haven't seen in a long time. I get to just take in the greatness that is the Legion community, and I also get to drink a lot of alcohol. It's awesome, and I love it. What that does though is that places a lot of the pressure for running the event on anybody that is a sub TO, like Josh, who is directly responsible for the GT, or Ryan, who's directly responsible for the doubles, and also Nima as the head judge. And something we did differently this year that we've never done before is we had one judge crew because in previous LVOs, we broke up the judges per event and we said, hey, you're doing this event this day, you're doing this event this day. And they were tied, they were tethered to those events. And this year I was like, nope, we're doing one crew, one team, one fight. We made a lot of the rules similar across the two events between the champs and the GT. And some people who submitted proxies know those woes, and so we wanted to create one rule set, and Nima was responsible for it and he executed it. And I will never sell out Nima because he is God's perfect angel. And I will tell you again, up front in my canned response, that every decision he and his team made was absolutely correct. Let's get into how I personally feel about it. So, when I am the head judge, and this is a relevant comment because if you guys did not know, I am the head judge for Worlds this year. So
Oh, okay.
I was the head judge in 2023. Obviously, I was gone in 2024. They asked me to be head judge again this year. Um, I tell my judges that it is up to you to keep the game state moving and to allow people to, to finish their games, to play authentic games of Star Wars Legion. They are not there to review game footage or stop the flow of a game or take so much time that you feel like you have lost agency as a player to complete that game. The problem with that approach, and the reason why people might not like it, is because they might want you to take more time. They might want you to be more involved. They might want you to be in the eaches and in the details. But I, as a military person, I'm a very decentralized guy. And so I like to give the power to the lowest level and allow them to make decisions and know that I have put them in that position because I trust them and that they will therefore make a decision, the best decision at the time. And so when I think about judging and when I talk to people about how I run judge crews, that's kind of my foundational doctrine. And I think because Nima and I have worked a lot over the last 6 years, I think that's how he runs it. And so the way that he will give his judge speech to the people assembled is he will say, the judge renders the ruling, you can appeal the ruling to me, and then I can either refute the ruling and give a new ruling, or I can tell you that is the ruling. And I like that approach. I encourage people to take that approach, and I will continue to use that approach because it achieves my ultimate goal, which is to
Mhm.
keep the game moving. There has never been a perfect game of Star Wars Legion. Nobody has ever played a perfect game, and nobody will ever play a perfect game. So trying to achieve perfection through judging, I think, is a mistake.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that you can't do better, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't make the right call when it's time to make the call. But I don't like to. It's not that I don't hold judges accountable for bad decisions. One of the things that people don't see is when we take time at the end of a round or at the end of the day to talk about judge calls that we got right and also bring about a judge call that we got wrong to try to make the whole
Mhm.
team better. Um, but I trust them to do their job and to make a call to keep the game moving. I think it's important to recognize that that's the approach we take. So, show me on the doll where the rules guy touched you.
That's funny because we've actually used that doll comment for JR too.
Yeah.
No, so I was telling the guys before you got on, it's been a few months, few weeks already, and pretty sure you've heard of the immobilized stuff, all these different things, and I'm in the camp with Rob now when it comes to
With me?
rules. Yeah, listen. Um, when it comes to the rule book and then the great the rules
Forum.
forum. And so looking at stuff like the immobilized, looking at stuff like rules forum stuff that doesn't transition into the official rule
Overrun.
book, overrun stuff like that. I completely understand where things can get lost in translation when you are judging stuff because the withdrawal into a climb that happened on stream,
Mm.
I and other people were like, "Whoa, you can't do that." It happened. Even Imperial Goldfish were like, "I don't think you can do that." Well, that unit's on that bus now, and so the judge ruled it that way. So it's like, okay, cool. But once again, the loss in transition between the forums and the actual rule book, it came to light later on that that is something you can do as per new forum rules. So I owe the judges a big apology, because I did not take that into consideration. But I will not yield on the fact that I think one, the biggest thing to me is when you miss rules like that, like, okay, cool, you missed it, lost in translation. But when it's basic rules, such as like Rob's example of an overlap, like I don't think that that's a rule that you should miss because that hasn't changed.
Hmm.
Stuff like that. And when, I'm a competitive guy and I love competition. And I've told somebody at a competition, our first LVO or LVO, our first Vet Fest, a good friend of ours, former, no, still member of the cast. I don't care what he says. Daniel, we're having a game and we're playing for an invite. It was,
Mhm.
and I'm within. We're still early in the game. I'm looking to make my move, and
Hmm.
he's like, "Dude, can you hurry up?" And I told him, looked at him across the table, and said, "Hey, we're playing for an invite. We're playing a competitive game for an invite that I really want to win." Now, granted,
Hmm.
JR's in the tournament. I'm probably gonna get smoked, but at that
Just
moment,
give
I'm not
Jose a
thinking
chess clock.
JR, and I'm telling him, I will assess the situation and make my move the best that I feel I can make it, regardless of what you think. And I'm just that type of person. Yes, it could be like an asshole thing. It could be I'm completely wrong. I get that. But you know, I just feel like stuff like that, like in a competitive environment, I want the correct call. So much to
Hmm.
the point where if I appeal a rule, and we like you've heard our podcast before, and Nima like shoots it down, like I am such a stickler for the rule that I'm gonna appeal it to the judge because I know he's wrong. And so that's where me and Rob come to a disagreement because he's like, I'm not gonna appeal a head judge
No,
rule
no.
where
This
you but LJ just stated if you're gonna appeal it, you could do that.
Hmm.
Um,
well, you can't
so
appeal the
like
head judge call. If once Nima makes the call, it's made.
no, but if the judge gets it wrong, so the thing I was saying is if the judge gets it wrong, I don't believe that it's bad to tell the judge, hey, you got it wrong, and expect him in good faith to revert the situation. Is that a thing? Would that be an okay thing?
I
So
think,
that is an appeal. I mean, that's why we
yeah,
have that
Yeah.
process. We have it for a reason, and it's that reason.
yeah. And in my case, is Nima was the one that made the call, so there's no appealing beyond Nima, right?
Correct. We had done it in the past where like I could act as a tertiary layer of
I
appeals, but with the way that we were running that crew, Meme and I were basically like, nah, this time we're
and
not going to do it.
and you know, it
I
it,
want to
it
drink my
was
beer.
like it didn't
Yeah.
really super affect my game anyway, so I didn't really care. But it was just,
It's not
it's
that it didn't
people are
super affect
perfect.
your game. We could roll back the tape. You literally said it could have impacted your game. So don't tell me it didn't. You
Sure,
on the cast, I rewatched it, said it could have impacted your game. Don't sit there and
maybe
say
I'm thinking
that.
of a different calling now. Then I don't
No,
know.
no, no. That was
The
that
Nima
call.
call, the one that Nima made didn't affect the game, but another judge call probably
No,
did.
but
Wasn't
go
he?
watch that tape. We got it
Sure,
on tape, sir.
sure. But we're running long.
But anyways,
We've gone
any
long. We haven't even talked about 26.
That'll
anyways,
be easy. It'll
So
be all good stuff.
okay,
anyways, like I came off like an asshole. I get that. But that's just the way I am. JR knows like I'm gonna want the correct call, fight for the correct call. That's just the way I'm built. And when it's in a competitive environment like that, like I could get sent home in a top four for a judge making the worst call and it wasn't even my fault, and then to go back later and be like, hey, he was wrong. Like I got screwed. Like that's just a
Hmm.
sucky feeling.
Hmm.
And I know you guys do the best to avoid it, but like I said, it's mainly just stuff like the common stuff that gets under my skin when it comes to
Hmm.
that stuff.
And I think that's why I try to frame it in a way where, I think there's never been a perfect game of Legion and
no,
never will be. Uh, we have a tendency to focus on, yeah, that one call, that one thing blew the game for me, which, disregards the last 2 hours that you spent playing the game.
yeah,
And who's to say that you didn't add some extra juice on your move because you hovered the tool instead of putting it on the table, or
yeah,
you forgot an errata and you were rolling two reds and a black instead of two blacks and a red on something that had been updated.
yeah.
And so
Like
I
Jose's arcs that still have critical.
and so that's why I take that culminative approach rather than trying to get too much in the weeds anymore.
Hmm.
I believe that the total number of calls that the judge crew made, which I don't have a great way to assess this, I believe at the core that the total calls they made and the average was what it needed to be. If you want to
Hmm.
put a percent on that, you could, but like that over the
There's
course of
no
the
need.
event, that they made the right call. what I think we'll continue to do is I think we'll just continue to have very clear procedures on how you call a judge, when you call a judge, what the appeals process is, and continue to encourage people to use those processes so they feel
Mhm.
like they have at least had some agency in the process, which helps to address some of the feel bad experiences.
Mhm.
At least
Yeah.
like you said, if you feel like you can go and you can address the situation, that's why I kind of meet you in the middle to where even if the call goes the way you don't want it to, and it turns out you were right in the end, that you still know that, hey, you did the right thing. We did the right thing by meeting you in the middle, and we tried to keep the game moving by
Yeah.
giving you the call that we thought was right at the time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So that's something that I encourage people to keep in mind when they go to big events. Also, it's really hard to have a judge on a stream table for the entire event. Uh, I cannot allocate 15% of my staff to one table. That's really difficult and not realistic.
Yeah.
We tried to essentially give the judges a break by giving them some time on the stream with Imperial Goldfish, which is why
Mhm.
you saw some judges there.
Mm.
But the thing about the stream table, even if a judge sits down on it, is if you put them on the stream table behind the casters, they're not a judge anymore. They wear the judge shirt. They could make judge calls, and if a rules question comes up between the two players, they would probably the one that are going to answer it. But that's another reason why I try to stay away from that where possible. And I think
Mhm.
we could have done a better job this year. Was, I think we maybe broke that code or that relationship by having judges be color commentators on a stream
Hmm.
because the expectation should have changed for those individuals, and it doesn't when they're judges. If you throw Austin Miller on day one of the GT to color commentate, that's great. Nobody expects anything of him other than a good time. But when you start throwing your judges on there, then I think the expectation changes in a way that, as far as I can tell, has not worked out to be a net positive for us. And so it's something that I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to try to stray away
Well,
from.
yeah, I think it should be fine for them to be there, but I mean, maybe they take the shirt off for the game, right? If they're
Right. Well,
there.
we
And
create that expectation that they're not there because
yeah,
people think they're then there to police the game.
right.
And what I tell the streamers when they show up is, hey, you are there to cover the game. Players make mistakes. I'm not deputizing you as the head honcho of this table. If you
Hmm.
see some major problem, call a judge and have them fix it. But we've had problems in the past, and to be perfectly honest, I have done this. I have been the problem at Worlds 2023 when I saw something I thought was wrong, and I ran the tape back and I realized I made the wrong call because I was too invested in the game
Oh, okay.
instead of being that neutral third party that was in the
Mhm.
vicinity but not actually watching the game with a close eye.
Yeah.
And so, that's probably an approach that I think I'll continue to take going forward. I like judging. Now, on the flip side, I love judging your stream table as a head judge because you create a central node that all your judges can always find you at. So if there is a
Hmm.
problem, there is an appeal, they know where and how to flag you down. And you're not, usually because the stream table's kind of off to the side, you're not critically engaged in the mass of tables that are actively playing the event and getting pulled in this direction, this direction, this direction. So when that appeal does happen, your judge knows, hey, I can find the head judge at this location, get my appeal taken care of, or flag them down so they can come to me, and then make the call and keep the game open.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I think that's probably something that, we may or may not see at Worlds this year. Kind of depends on how Josh feels.
Hmm.
Gotcha.
But definitely at future LVOs, like LVO 2026,
2026.
which I
All
Ooh, the
right.
believe we
segue.
should probably talk about.
Probably.
Yes. Give us the feedback, or not the feedback. Just tell us about 2026.
So what's the
Now,
plans?
so like let's some of the good stuff that we can say we've taken away from this discussion that'll improve the next one. Um, I I
Oh,
like
sorry.
for
Sorry,
oh
LJ. I did want
no
to ask
go
one question.
Rude.
dive.
Why
No, it's
did they
fine. I asked you guys for the extra questions, so
why did they
Yeah.
put us in a smaller hall this year?
It was I actually liked it because it was just us, but
because they had more vendors.
Okay.
The we were in the old vendor hall. The
Mm.
Brasilia where we used to be was where the vendors were. That's because Frontline, who has to pay the bill somehow, were able to attract way more vendors this year, which of course helps them because all the vendors pay a
Hmm.
commission to be there, and sales help everybody out. So, um, we got to be in a space that was almost entirely Star Wars Legion,
It was awesome.
because of that. And I really dug that. That
Yeah, it was
reminded me
awesome.
of year one when we were in the sky view all by ourselves. So,
Oh, wow.
Sick.
Cool.
Nice.
but yes, no, good question. And I asked you guys for any other lingering 2025 questions. So, JR, you got yours. So you don't get any more. Rob,
Oh man.
did you have one
li
more?
Lingering 25 questions. I
Yeah. Did you have
actually
any other lingering 25?
I think I'm good on 25 questions other than again, I feel like I have to say it again, why didn't Nick win the table contest? But
That's true.
Christmas Village, like it was right there, it's perfect.
I mean, he didn't win the table contest, but he didn't lose the table
He
contest.
got
He did.
second
He
place.
did get second
That's
Which
a
place.
is
win to
probably winning for
him.
Nick.
That's a win for Nick. He loves
He
second
doesn't
place.
want to win. He wants to get second place. So somebody else gets to be the winner.
You guys did mention it, but the table that was the stream table for the second day, I think it was the I think we called it like Nalhutta. It was all the really dark buildings with the neon signs and stuff that was on
Oh,
stream.
cool.
That won first place.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was our panel that voted on it. They picked
Yeah,
that as
and
number
like
one.
I'm sure they actually put effort into that one, whereas Nick bought some Christmas stuff.
The
Whoa.
Christmas one got second place, but this isn't reality, so don't take this as serious. But the Christmas one got second place because I used to put miniatures in my mom's Christmas village every year. And we
There
we
you
would
go.
we would slowly put more miniatures in as it got closer to Christmas. And there was one year we had Death Corps of Krieg versus Tyranids, and we had like 20,000 points of models in this Christmas village with an iPad that was set to like war sounds playing like artillery
Nice.
firing and horses neighing and like whatnot in the background of Charles Dickens' village. It was awesome. All right,
All
Jose,
right.
parting shots for LVO 2025 that you didn't attend, so I don't care what you say.
Oh. Nah, dude, I loved it. The note of letting the stream know that you guys aren't deputized was came across clear on the stream because during
That's
some of
good.
the ruling stuff, like Goldfish was very clear. Hey, we're not in charge of this. We're not
Mhm.
judges, which was awesome. But no, 2025, the games I saw were awesome. Players I saw were awesome. Looking forward to seeing what you're gonna do in 26. I don't have an issue with the pricing. I think I am grateful for every prize that I get, regardless of how I get it. Um, but if I was to make a recommendation on pricing, kick ass with the stuff that players use. Like
Mhm.
command cards are
Yeah.
cool, but some players aren't going to use them. Rob gave me the third degree about not using his. But like deploy territory markers, silhouettes, like stuff like that, that is actual a component that players will use. I think every player would be pumped to just have those as
Yeah,
prizes. I mean,
especially with a big event
I
like
I
Mhm.
love your markers. I got both sets, 23, 24. And I use them all the time. I use all my prizes from LVO. The last ones I've went are in my box, and that's what I use. And so when you provide prizes that are consistently something you use in the game, that's a better prize than anything else that I'm going to get that I'm probably never going to use.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's good. So we'll go back to 2026 or segue into 2026 and
to the future.
start with prizes. Um, what I would love for people to think about, to look forward to maybe start to reach out about if you're somebody that owns a business or wants to sponsor a big event. Um, Look at what Jerry's Game Shop is doing for us for the Las Vegas Open Invitational Series. For anybody that does not know, we don't have store kits at the moment for this current season. And store kits, when produced by FFG or AMG, tend to be either once or maybe twice a year. So the pricing doesn't really change throughout the course of a year. You go to one store event, you get the cool stuff. You go to a store event the second time, and you're like, oh, I already have this stuff. This isn't as helpful.
Hmm.
And you might pass it on, you might give it to your community, whatever, but it loses some value over time. And what they did for us for this season was they created 4 different kits that we were selling on their behalf at the LVO, and that you can buy, pre-order, and use at your events, whether they're LVOIS events or not. And they consist of things that you use on the table. Look at that
Nice.
shit. Like scoreboards, 1.5 range tools for marking territories,
That's super nice.
I
points of
actually bought a
interest
kit.
tokens, card sleeves, or things like your players might want to take home and put on their shelf, like little trophies that say first place or best painted, or even a little badge for the TO that says tournament organizer or judge or whatever. And so take a look at those things that they're currently doing to support us as a system right now, and know that that's where my mind is at for 2026.
Hmm.
So when we talk about what prizes I'm going to pursue for the next year, first of all, item number one is going to be territory markers. It's just,
Nice.
look, I'm shooting myself in the foot by committing to it now, but
Yes.
No.
look, it's just the number one thing, because guess what? I use the LVO 2023 territory markers or deployment markers for my games of Legion right now.
Same.
I
Love
love
them.
them, and I like the acrylic ones that Jordan did for 2024 a lot
Yellow.
too. And
Yeah.
guess what? He hooked me up with his buyer, so that shit doesn't fall through the cracks again.
Nice.
And so yes, we want to try to improve the stuff we give by giving stuff that can be functional. I just When we talk about pricing for the future, just use the GT this year as a baseline for the GT next year.
Hmm.
Don't expect that to change, and you won't be disappointed. If we can do better, if we can give stuff to all the people that go to the GT that's not normally in the GT kit, yeah, of course we're going to try to do that. But I want to also tell people, like, hey, stop comparing us to LVOs in the past, because I'm not going to win a nuclear arms race against myself. I have
Hmm.
already lost when I am fighting myself. And so have that expectation, even from the GT, which we control much less going into the next one. But for the people that came for the champs that were like, hey, it was a big community thing and I wanted the big community thing, and I don't felt like I got the big community thing because we didn't get the cool LVO branded stuff that we had for next year. Hey, heard chef, we'll do better next
Hmm.
time.
All
So
right.
that's the big thing for prizing.
Mm.
Okay.
For 26. For terrain, I think we
Yep.
talked about a lot about how we're going to address terrain or keep up the progress we felt like we made this last year. Now that we've got a great way to categorize, track, and know what we need to do to improve the current table set. Um, I will also say that I ask and talk to people all the time about trying to get tables from them to bolster our inventory. So
Nice.
if you're going to attend a Rocky Mountain Open, if you're going to attend a Cherokee, if you're within driving distance of Boulder, you can also help us by reaching out to me and either donating, allowing me to sponsor to purchase your table, or somebody spending their own hold card cash to buy that table from you and grow the inventory. Because if you, Rob, liked the stuff on the community tables and we pluck that table and put it
Hmm.
in the frontline inventory, now everybody wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only does that, because like the tables that 5280s could have given the permanent frontline inventory, we put like stickers on their boxes. We don't forget where that stuff came from. We don't
Nice.
forget who gave it to us. And so we try to keep that community pride invested in it, whether it is the grand tournament or the LVOAS champs. And so I think
Hmm.
we're just going to continue to do that. And I ask that you continue to, and this is the royal you, not you specifically, Rob, but I'm sure you will continue to give feedback, continue to talk about the terrain, and continue to support us as we keep growing, because terrain doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Um, if this is not my spoiler teaser to give, but they don't listen to me anyway, so why do I care? Um, if anybody's ever looked at Frontline Gaming's website, they have a fantastic terrain set for Marvel Crisis Protocol that for like, I think it's like $200, you can buy pre-painted MDF stuff that is actually really good. because like I play a lot of MCP, and their standard city table setup is great. Like you could just buy like 10 of those, and suddenly you can run a 20-person event without lifting a finger.
Okay.
Uh, they're working on that for Legion.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
That's sweet.
Whoa,
And
what?
that's
Ooh.
a
Heard it here
thing
first, people.
yeah, that's the thing we've been working on for like over 2 years now. I don't know if anybody really knows this. The guy that won the GT, Kevin Clow, he works in the Frontline Gaming warehouse.
Oh, I knew this because I played him on TTS last week.
And he is now personally invested in that frontline gaming terrain inventory and growing it and making sure it's the best it can be. And all these
That's
elements we've talked
awesome.
about terrain, he
Oh
is
yeah.
taking to heart and he's there physically with the stuff. But then
Hmm.
also finding out how frontline gaming can help produce something that will benefit us in the long run. We that this is another thing that is kind of a nuclear arms race. We also
Mm.
have and try to have the best tables, and we don't always have the best tables, but we have, on average, we have good stuff.
yeah.
But the stuff that Frontline produces is what I consider to be a step below that. The stuff that I saw that they were throwing out there for us and what they consider like a standard table to be
Hmm.
is much better than what it used to be 2 years ago
Wow.
when we started
Nice.
talking about this. So give it some time. They're clearly
Cool.
not ready to announce it yet. Otherwise, I'd be linking you to a website. But for TOs that are trying to grow their scene and trying to get more terrain, maybe don't have great 3D printer
Or even just
access.
stores, right? Like,
Right. Or and I have a store I'm supporting very closely that just opened 2 months ago. Once that project, is officially on their store, yeah, we'll probably be buying
yeah.
because if we can buy, some generic Star Warsy stuff and use that to fill out some tables really quickly, especially if it's pre-painted, but even if it's not,
Hmm.
that's gonna be something pretty big. And I will tie that into this entire discussion by saying Frontline Gaming produces that stuff in-house which makes it much cheaper.
Hmm.
So that $200 to $400 range was my, range that I was looking at for a table. Now we're talking on their end, and it's going straight from them to their inventory. So you cut out a lot of middleman.
Yeah.
Middleman.
$100.
Hmm.
So now you're getting two tables for the price of one.
That'll be nice.
So that's something that we can also potentially use to grow our inventory, but that's only if we feel like the tables are sufficient enough to meet our standards. From what I saw, the kind of early access version, I think we'll get there, but we'll see what
Okay.
the actual product looks like when it comes out.
Will you
That's
guys
Oh
awesome.
yeah.
buy any tables? Like, if it's
Oh,
not
no.
Star Wars related?
Well, I mean, look, we
Like,
use
No.
we use Christmas, so
oh, so like if the Legion lads came up with a Simpson
Well, I don't
table,
think they'd buy, but if we donated one, right?
well, yeah,
Like a
yeah,
Simpsons
yeah, like
table.
like you guys would put it in LVO.
I mean, hey, look, we can always add it to the inventory. Whether it gets put out at an event is an entirely
That's
different
true.
question.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just have
Okay.
to be there at every event, JR, and be like, hey,
It's
you're
just,
using
hey,
that
where's my
table.
table?
Yeah. Where's the Legion lads table? Put it up.
Yeah. No, I
Hit
mean,
up every TO.
it's very rare that like somebody will try to give us something we're like, nah, dog, this ain't it. There's
Mhm.
always at the very least, there's always elements that we can incorporate into other tables to repair, fix, bolster, or create something new. And that's how we kind of grew the inventory at the start, is there was Terrains for Games, which is a Polish vendor that makes those all those rocks that we have distributed throughout the table, the forest rocks, the Mars rocks, the desert rocks,
Mhm.
and we just bought a bunch of that, and then we 3D printed, bought, and stole, borrowed, whatever, a bunch of Star Wars stuff to make them then look like Star Wars tables.
Mm.
And so that's another thing that like we can do to grow the inventory, or again, people that are trying to grow their local or what have you.
Nice.
Very cool.
With that, are you guys gonna be doing another table competition?
Probably. Uh,
Nice.
Nice.
that's something that we would announce way closer to like when tickets go on sale, like just
Hmm.
like when tickets go on sale. I think the other thing we're going to try to do is maybe announce it a little earlier, but there's also like when you're talking about tickets going on sale 6 7 months out, that also is probably like too early. i
Yeah.
think I think somewhere right in the middle is not bad, but that also means though that like we could mention it in the packet and say, hey, we're going to do a table competition this year, sponsors
Hmm.
pending.
Mhm.
Okay.
That way people have it in their brains, and then we get to unveil those prizes as the year goes on. Because if we put it in there, Yeah, we'll find a
Nice.
sponsor.
And since we're speaking about community funded tables, and I know we already talked pricing, but have you considered allowing for individuals and groups to sponsor bounty prizes? Like do this special thing, get this thing I'm bringing?
Yeah, we've done that in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
LVO
have the bounty board.
2023 had the bounty board, so
Bounty board.
Another
That was before I
great
played.
addition.
But so
yeah.
you considering doing that again then for 26?
I think I would, but not on the scale of the entire event. I think a
Okay.
bounty board is perfect for like your 32 player and less events.
Hmm.
So I think a bounty board for like a doubles or a side event is a lot easier to manage
Yeah.
and actually execute than trying to do it for 160 people
Okay.
running in a GT.
Yeah.
So if we brought a bounty board back, I would say that's probably the way we'd bring it back.
Hmm.
So I have a question. Not you know, I saw that they did like they are doing LVOIS packets, not packets,
Mhm.
but like the stuff on Facebook. I haven't opened it. I'm just being lazy. I'm not gonna lie. And then somebody got me slaving away painting stuff for them that they get accused of painting themselves, but we're not gonna get into that.
Hmm.
Any idea? I mean, if you're probably not locked in yet, or maybe you are. I don't know. Any idea? We're so close to it. What the pricing for the tickets will be for LVO?
I don't know. I don't work for Frontline Gaming.
Oh, okay. So is
Right?
that?
We just want
Yeah,
this whole
so
pod.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Whoops.
no, I think they start with the previous year as a baseline, so I would look and see what they went for on the previous year and just go into
Gotcha.
the
Gotcha.
next year
Gotcha.
with that in mind. Frontline Gaming really likes to do like ticket packages.
Hmm.
So when I come up with my plan for LVO 2026, so hey, that was a good comment because it's a useful segue, is I would expect I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I would expect the same approach where you buy one ticket and that gets you 3 days of play.
Hmm.
Mm.
What you do and how we break up those 3 days of play, that's something that I have to work out between myself and Frontline Gaming. But it makes it easier for them because they have to offer less overall tickets. I think they
Hmm.
got themselves into
Mhm.
problems in the past where they had, 7 tickets for Star Wars Legion or something crazy like that one year, when really they probably needed like 3 tickets for Star Wars Legion. And so that's what we did this year. We had 3 tickets for Star Wars Legion. We had a main event, an LVOIS champs, or sorry, GT, an LVOIS champs, and the doubles. I would expect that to be fairly similar. They like to also offer the combo tickets that come with a badge, come with some LVO branded stuff, and then come with your tournament entry versus just the standard tournament entry and nothing else ticket. Just knowing Frontline, I'd expect that kind of approach to stay.
Okay, and then secondly, this year at LVO you did the or last year at LVO, no, this year at LVO, sorry,
Yeah.
you did the guys from the GT snuck into the LVOS. I
Mhm.
don't say sneak as like a joke. I mean, you played in the tournament, won your way up into there. Is that something you're gonna carry on forward, like future LVOs, in terms of like GT guys getting shots to get into the qualifier?
Oh, you don't even have to ask that. If you
Yeah.
go to the Las Vegas Open Invitational Series website,
I just said I
and
didn't
you
do that.
and you drop down our rules tab, there's 3 documents: an overview, and qualification, suggested event guidelines, and the rules that we use for the Las Vegas Open Invitational Series Championship. Those things are already up there. One of the things that talks about that the qualification document talks about is determining player totals for the LVOIS Championship. And how we determine totals is the automatic invites. The winner from the previous champs gets an automatic invite. Any unfilled spots are filled with the points event. And then when we get to the event, any unfilled spots are filled from the GT.
So
Cool.
So yes, is the answer to your question. But I bring up and I harp on the website stuff because people simply don't know that this support already exists there for them. So
mhm.
I want to make sure they understand if they go to the website, they hit the documents and rules drop down, that the overview document says step by step how you earn your spot at the LVOIS championship, whether
Nice.
that's winning a full qualifier, earning points at events, uh, actually filling the seat on the day, and how many
Hmm.
points your event is worth based on what size it is. Like that stuff's broken down to one single document. It was split up before, and we've now put it all in one place, which I really like.
Nice. Cool.
Sweet.
All right.
So that feeds into format,
Okay.
which is something we didn't talk about or harp on for this LVO, which means it was perfect. So I have no notes, so nothing will change. No. Um, I was kind of getting at to it, and we got distracted with another question.
We did last, or in our first pod, I think we mentioned
Oh,
the scrambles,
you
right?
talked about the scrambles, you talked about round counts and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I do want to get into that for the 2026 part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Like I said, today, you guys didn't mention it at any point in the podcast up to this point, so it was clearly perfect. But I did get a lot of feedback on different elements of the schedule and how we broke up the events at the LVO.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I what I like and what I will probably keep is I like the GT being on the first 2 days. I
Yeah.
like the champ starting on the second day and ending on the third day. And I
Mhm.
like having some sort of event to keep you busy on Friday or Sunday, depending on which
Yeah.
of those two events you gravitate towards. Um, Scrambles was exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
Um, but I know that it's a new concept for a lot of people, so you might have had a preconceived notion of what it was going to be, or you might have heard something I said on this podcast and had a preconceived notion because of that. That's very understandable. I like to
Mhm.
talk. Um, but they were exactly what I think we build them to be on the ticket, which is, hey, you
Okay.
show up, you get to play some more games. Um, they were meant to be, and if this didn't translate, that's why I want to make sure I explain it now, because that's what I'm going to go into next year thinking. They are meant to be completely independent. You sign up, you get your pod, you're assigned your tables, and then you guys do your thing. If you want to play turn zero 50 times in a row and go through the battle deck process and maybe play through, round one and then recock and do it again and do it again and do it again with your 8 people, that's what it's there for. If you're looking for a mini tournament, you should play a mini tournament and determine one winner and try to, sweat it out against people that are going to play in the champs or have fun games at the end of the event on Sunday. But I don't think you should expect it to be something where you can earn more prizes. And
Mhm.
that's because, the base expectation for a pod is not the same from each pod to pod to pod, like I just said. Because one pod is running an 8-person, 3-round single day event, and the pod next to them might be, going over tactics or maybe they're settling a grudge. Maybe you've got Arizona versus Colorado, 4 from each group, duking it out to see who's the best community that attended the LVO. It's hard to create a structure that caters to those different kind of things. And you can do that kind of participation prize approach where if you do scrambles, you get this automatic thing no matter what you do with your scramble. But we already talked about why that wasn't feasible for this LVO. So what we're going
Mhm.
to look at is we're going to see if maybe there is a way to cater to that ideal and try to have something that like, hey, you showed up to scramble, so here's your goodie bag. But I think also for scrambles for the next year, people should understand that like your prizing that your ticket money may or may not have gone to, it didn't go towards it, um,
Yeah.
supported your main event that the ticket was billed under.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to create that expectation now. We are giving you the space and the freedom to do what you feel is best, but don't expect us to support it with judges. Don't expect us to support us with prizes. We'll have a grand poobah that's in charge of it, and we did, and we had somebody that was amazing that came with her husband and ended up helping us. That wasn't even supposed to be part of staff. But don't expect it to be very structured because of that, and just
Mhm.
have that expectation. Um, I think what I would also like to do next year, and this is just related to that, is only have a ticket for the GT and therefore Friday, Saturday, and then have doubles included in that.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. That's cool.
So because the other problem is having pods on Sunday doesn't really work when you need to put shit away.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and doubles was specifically engineered to end at 4 o'clock, so we could
Mhm.
so we could be out of the hall between 5 and 7 o'clock, which is what happened.
Yeah.
And, if you play a 3-round day, you're going to be there till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And we're all trying to get out of there because it's the Sunday at LVO. Whereas on
Yeah.
Friday,
Mhm.
if you're in the champs and you want to do pods, we can give you that day back. So your ticket is also a 3-day ticket. and you can play to 8 o'clock at night, let's say, because that's when the GT is going to run to.
Okay.
And so that I think that'll kind of level the bubbles a little bit, and it'll keep the spirit of what I wanted pods to be, which truly the reason I brought on pods is because I wanted to give the champs people a chance to smash heads before the main event.
Yeah.
And I think that'll keep the spirit of that without having it cater to an open play type thing where people could come and get some sort of rewards like the ticket system that they have at Adepticon. That's not what I envision it to be, and I don't think it'll ever be like that.
Okay.
So that's an element of scheduling that I think will change from one year to the next. And generally speaking, if I ask Frontline, hey, I want to do this thing, they let us do this thing. So I don't think that'll be a hard change to make. But let's also talk about another big one, the round structure.
Yeah,
Getting at it, we were getting at it earlier. I like 4 round days. I think you're
Yeah,
a
I don't mind it.
coward if you don't like 4 round days.
I like it.
The
But
four
that's
four four at Worlds wasn't that bad. Okay.
but what that and look, when I played at High Command in 2019 at Adepticon, I played 4 rounds in the last chance qualifier, then 4 rounds in high command, and then 2 more rounds of doubles on Sunday. I played my 10 games. I served my nickel. I did it. And boy, God, when I got to dinner on Sunday, I was staring at my plate and I was wondering if Speed 2 move could make it from my pizza to my beer. Because I was just my brain was mush and Legion bits mixed in.
So I'm glad.
But
Go ahead.
here's where I'm going with this because I
Okay.
do have a point.
Mm,
But you're also in Vegas.
sure.
And
Yeah.
what the 5280 crowd really makes me appreciate is that they come to have a good time first these days. And I think that approach keeps the spirit of our community alive. And so what I'd like to do to emulate their attitude and the attitude that I think is a good one to have when it comes to our competitive Legion events, because the GT was competitive. The Champs was the big invite event, but the person with the highest rating on Longshanks played in the GT, not the Champs.
Mhm.
Would be to have 3 rounds on Friday for the GT,
Yep.
3 rounds on Saturday for the GT,
Perfect.
and then it cuts. And the top 2 play on Sunday from the GT.
Mhm.
So,
Oh.
If they opt to play a 4th round on Saturday, that's fine. And we'll talk about that in a second. But ideally, they agree to sleep, come back the next day, and be the streamed game during the first round of Legion on Sunday. So you have your gold medal championship to start off the day for the GT.
Nice.
Then what follows that? The gold match for the LVOIS champs. Because we're there to kick gas, we're
Mm-hmm.
there to chew bubblegum.
Yep.
Big names.
We stick to 4 rounds on
Yep.
Saturday for the champs because guess what? Those people had the chance to either skip Friday or come Friday and hang out in Vegas and enjoy Vegas
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even play 3 rounds and still enjoy Vegas
Mm.
after
Yeah.
the hours of 7, 8 o'clock, but then play their 4 games on uh, Saturday and then play 2 more games on Sunday, just like we did this year, and just do a straight 6 round Swiss. But you'll have one winner at the end of it that plays on the second round of the day on Sunday, and then you have your gold games back to back.
That'd be cool.
That would
that'd
be
be
I
Yeah.
think
sick.
I
That'd
think
be
that'd
really
be
cool.
super cool from an event runner standpoint. It makes things easier for us because look, staff gets out of that hall at 11 o'clock at night and they show up at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it runs my guys ragged too to do it that way. So I think eating Saturday is the 4 round day, but then Friday being 3 rounds and Sunday being 2 rounds
Mhm.
really helps make it a lot easier on everybody. So I think that's the kind of like format I'd like to pursue would be doing a 3-3-1 for the GT
Mhm.
and then a 4-2 and straight Swiss in pretty much all of these rounds except for that cut for the GT. And then doubles on Sunday or just the side event in general. Brian's gonna keep doing doubles. I have no power to stop him. Everybody knows he's an elemental being at this point.
Doubles is fun.
And then the GT feeds into the doubles, which also kind of meets the mindset and the intent
Hmm.
of the GT. It's a community competitive event. And they get their community feeling because man, when teams events are rocking, they're a great time and they're a really good measure of the community.
Nice.
I was gonna ask a
So that's
question.
big format stuff. So hit me with your questions.
Have you considered what I said if you do 2 games, lunch, then 2 games?
I have considered it. I've
Cool.
chosen to ignore your advice, but
Yes.
the the upside of that being that we we can do that if we want, and we have lots of time to think about it. So I think when we have that initial LVO format discussion, which tends to happen in like May or so, um, I'll put it on a schedule. I will look at the schedule and I'll be like, yeah, this makes sense, or no, I hate it. We'll never do this again. Um, I think for Friday, by making it 3 rounds for the GT, we've already fixed that problem
Right.
Yeah.
because you're out by a respectable hour. You can have dinner as normal and do fun community events or whatever.
Hmm.
For Saturday, I because you have the 4 rounds, what we're either going to have to do, and again, we didn't have the bandwidth to really go after it this year, is either do that to split 2 rounds, lunch, 2 rounds, because it helps everybody a little bit. Either tell you the format 7 months in advance so you can, I don't know, maybe bring a snack and plan, which by the way is what we did. Or we
I have
and
my bagels.
we have done this before. Make an honest community attempt at providing some sort of food for the people playing in that fourth round. And so
Okay.
if we had 64 people to do that for, it's within the realm of possibility. But that's
Yeah.
one of those things that like again, the format when you buy the ticket because we have our packets up on time where you are accepting that risk because you have bought that ticket and you know what the schedule is in advance.
Yeah.
We did that at Adepticon in 2023. We got food for X number of individuals that were still playing in the final round of the day, and we loved it, and it was awesome. But we also did it for like 8 people or 16 people, so it was a lot easier to do from an admin standpoint. The only reason I don't think that doing that kind of thing is feasible is because of the numbers we'd have to do it for and how much coordination that actually takes to make that happen.
Mhm.
Um, it being in Vegas specifically, to me, makes that harder. If this tournament was kind of in a more homey location, let's say, where somebody's
Hmm.
grandma could come and deliver 64 burritos to the event, oh, I'd do that in a heartbeat, dog.
Yeah.
I did that for soldiers and drill weekends and stuff. Like that's easy. I can coordinate that kind of stuff. But the
Hmm.
venue and the location specifically makes it a lot harder than, hey, pick up on the phone and order 20 pizzas.
Got it.
There's a lot that goes into that and a lot of cost that goes back to the whole we don't actually
Hmm.
have money for that. So do we add $5 a ticket to the champs ticket to pay for pizza for the fourth round? Maybe. It's not outside the realm of possibility. Is it
Yeah.
worth the bandwidth when people want us to try to get more sponsors to buy prizes and make the terrain better? Yeah, I'm probably going to focus on that one versus that concern.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
these are all, again, peek behind the curtain things that kind of go in our decision-making process. For now, assume the format stays the same. 1 round, lunch, 3 more rounds for Saturday.
Okay.
Are we going to look into it and think about other things? Yeah, I think so. Because why
Cool.
not? We have the
Yeah.
time to think about it. And if we try it and we hate it, we just never do it again. We call it the JR rule.
I'm a rule baby. All right.
Yeah.
At least,
Actually, speaking of the JR rule, because
uh-huh.
this personally affected JR, have you had any thoughts about like instead of doing pure Swiss for like top final rankings, like
Mhm,
like the last 4 people or 8 people are top 8, 4 people top 4, 2 people top 2? Because I know
mhm.
like JR in particular, because he's here and we get to root for him. Like he was what top 4, the only CIS in top 4, and then he didn't get top CIS. So I
Mhm.
know that some of that is like SLS is like built into the long shanks, but have you considered something like that?
So, yes. And I think it's actually much easier to do because Longshanks makes it easier to do. The functionality to do that is built into the software where you
Hmm.
you can do a top cut without actually eliminating anybody. As
Mhm.
far as I understand, that is built into Longshanks at this time, but
Nice.
we didn't do it because I'm not 100% sure. And of course, I don't want to make a round cut 54 or 56 people and then have to fix that. That doesn't sound like a good time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would like to. It
Okay.
just has to make sense and be feasible within the software to do so, if that makes sense.
No, that
Um,
makes total sense.
there's ways to like jury rig it by maybe cutting the top 8 and having them run on paper instead of having
Mhm.
them run on the software. The only problem is the software acts as our historical record for LVO, so we
Right.
try to have it
Yeah.
reflect the actual standings so it doesn't mess it up in the long term, because that's going to be my final record of the event, right?
Mhm.
But Longshanks is really responsive to us and very helpful. And so I think it's something that we could, if the functionality doesn't exist currently, we could probably ask.
Nice.
Or you could just not be a bitch and play good.
Hold on, sir. I didn't get to play the other CIS player. I wish I would have, because then we would have known who the top CIS player is.
That's
Ooh,
true.
there you go.
Oh.
Because
The
personally,
grudge match.
I hate strength of schedule. That's just my
Mhm.
personal beef with it. But hey, it is what it is. We got to
It is
keep
what
Okay.
it
it
going.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not something I've ever had to worry about, right?
He hates it. Jared has a disdain for it. Our first one of our first tournaments locally, he was like undefeated, smashing everybody, and kill points are off the chart. This is back when it wasn't Longshanks, it was the other
Pre-game uplink even,
system.
right?
Game
Yeah.
uplink. And then he looked at the standings, he's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "What do you mean what is this?" He's like, "How are you ahead of me? I've killed more things than you. I've scored more things than you." I'm like, "Hey, bud, it's the last round. It's over. I'm ahead of you. You're
Mm.
just gonna eat this." He's like, "I'm not eating this." Hey, Roman, and Roman's like, "Oh, now you guys are playing another round." I'm like, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah, and we would have
Wouldn't let
stopped.
me
You would have
have
won
it.
that tournament. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where you smashed me. Oh God.
But yeah, so cool.
So
Uh,
what is the one thing that could potentially make this whole format discussion easier that we brought up earlier? Which is another thing I'd like to tease for 2026.
a
Anybody
spreadsheet?
remember? No, we talked about something earlier that all the Legion competitive community loves
Chess clocks.
when anybody slow plays them.
Chess
Oh,
clocks.
the chess
Chess
clocks?
What
Please
is
clock.
tell
We're
chess
coming
me.
back to
clocks?
chess
I
clocks?
So
I was gonna ask.
so here's the dealio. We've helped pioneer chess clocks for the Legion community, and we as in like myself, Jordan, people that have helped me run these events. We've done chess clocks at LVOs in the past. We developed an initial set of rules that were copied and used everywhere. We did them for Tabletop Simulator, and this has led to other events using them in larger numbers. France, Australia, they use chess clocks in much larger numbers than we did. And so, of course, I was like, hey, I've got control of the champs. So let's do chess clocks. But when you played your games and when you signed up for tickets, um, I didn't want to throw chess clocks in there for everybody because that's not a standard across the community yet. And we don't play with them at our home stores yet. They haven't proliferated the community like they do with like with Marvel Crisis Protocol. We talked about that earlier.
Mhm.
So we put them in the top 4
Yeah.
because to me that made the most sense. That matched it. So we only had to do it on Sunday, and the frontline gaming inventory has 12 chess clocks. So,
Oh, jeez.
it's not like we have enough to cover the entire field. And I always want to have enough equipment to self-supply. Try not to
Mhm.
ask you guys to bring stuff that you shouldn't have to bring normally.
Yeah.
So we did
Well,
it for the top
actually,
4.
you could always go to the next room over to the MCP people. They
Well,
love
we
chess clocks and
we
just
could, but they also need those chess clocks. So
yeah.
anyway, so we're like, all right, we'll do them for the top 4. We have feedback from chess clocks used past LVO, so let's try it again. And through the 3 games that use chess clocks, we had an hour left on the clock. We had 45 minutes left on the clock, and we had 23 minutes left on the clock between both players.
Mhm.
That time, we give players 75 minutes per player, which is 2.5 hours.
Mhm.
The Legion round times we use right now are 2.5 hours. plus a 15-minute overtime. Plus, I also build 15 minutes into the schedule to repair and push pairings, which helps deal with some of that slowness, which is why we were only 10 minutes over on the GT day, even with some of the problems we had in the first round. That whole half an hour chunk for the 15-minute overtime and the 15 minutes of repair, gone. So over the course of 4 rounds in a day, I have given you 2 hours back
Wow.
by eliminating that. Then we look at the chess clock players themselves, and we had almost an hour left on one chess clock, 45 minutes left on another one, and like 26 or something like that, I think it was. That's another half an hour that you could potentially cut game times down by. So now we've potentially given you, again, over the course of a 4 round day, 4 hours and gone from a 10 p.m. end time to a 6 p.m. end time. Your 3 round tournament is expected to end at 7 p.m. So we put the admin stuff back in, and now a 4 round day and a 3 round day are both ending around 7 o'clock.
Wow.
So, okay, that's a lot of like good scenarios. Is this going to be perfect? Whatever. To me, as the person whose primary responsibility is to make sure the trains run on time, you've sold me. I am at full mast. What can I do with this solution that you have given me? And I look at that and I go, yeah, we need to integrate that more in the future. So we've done chess clocks before and we liked it and we know we liked it, but we hadn't done it in 2.6 yet. We had some new rules to tweak, so we did it in the top four. And as you just heard, we had a very successful trial run. So what I would like to do for LVO 2026 is I would actually like to adopt something that 40K does in their competitive tournaments. What I don't want to have to do is I don't want to have to provide 32 chess clocks yet, because the feedback that I'm hearing from everybody that attends the event, not just the competitive champs people, is I hear that they want to have more prizes, they want to have better terrain,
Mm-hmm.
they want these things. So my effort over the next year is going to go towards those things before it goes towards anything else. However, if I can make the overall quality of the event better by helping that schedule stay on time, then why don't we steal a rule from 40K where if one player brings a chess clock and their opponent agrees to using it, both players play on the chess clock. So now that gives players the agency to decide if they want to do it or not. And we have a rule set that we like that will help you if you don't want to use a chess clock, but also we have a rule set that we use if we do. And maybe for 2026, that's what we do. We allow players to bring their own clock and run their own clock, and we set them to 75 minutes each. And that 2.5 hours fits in the schedule that we are already doing for everybody else in the hall. However, those people are leaving their games 30 minutes before you leave your game because you didn't use a clock. I think that will have a change on the following LVO. But
Okay.
I'm not willing to commit to everybody full clocks all the time right now because logistically it's not feasible yet and we as a community are not there yet. But if we use them for top cuts and people start to see them more often, and somebody's like, hey, I want to practice on a clock for my local game night so more people get exposed to them, I think that's one of those things that's going to allow me to be able to push that for LVO 2027, let's say.
Nice.
So
Does that
if we
sound good?
start practicing with them here, our local
Yeah.
community guys,
I'll
then
bring I'll bring one
look at Jose.
on Saturday.
Jose.
Bring them on
Yes,
Saturday and you guys
yes.
can use
Let's
it.
start. Let's start here locally, so that way
All right.
people get used to it.
Well, and I think this is a good time for them to come out again because the game has changed and we can see how it feels with a different pace of game and a different structure to how the game works. But at the same time, we kind of know what works already and we're going to apply that going forward. And, if you're looking for rules, again, those are also like pre-built in the LVOIS website. So you can grab them if you want chess clock rules to try them out and see what we might be using at, potential LVOs in the future. But that, I like to compromise and, remind people that I wouldn't expect you to use a chess clock until you've made that top cut on Sunday. The other reason why I bring all of this up is because we had 64 people for the champs. We started recruiting for the LVOIS the first weekend of May. That went through December, and we had 122 events across 15 different
Yeah.
countries, somewhere between I think it was 1,500 to 2,000 unique players participated in the system, and we were only at it for 6 months. So
Hmm.
now that we've started in January and we have the potential for a full year under our belt to try to grow the system, the next phase of expansion is to take the champs from 64 to 128 players.
Wow.
And so if we do the clocks, and now we're fitting rounds in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Well, now we can push the schedule in a way where we have 3 rounds on Sunday that are all on clocks to help keep us on the schedule and still get everybody out of the hall by 5 o'clock. So
Hmm.
so it allows me to grow and hold double the amount of people that we had previously by making that change. And I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. So
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's
Wow.
that's another reason why I'd like to integrate them for 2026, because that potentially gives me the leverage to jump up a step to 96 or 128 and then have 256 people playing Legion in the same hall.
That'd be great.
Because who wouldn't want that?
Love it. Love it all.
Then
Certainly not the
512, then a
judges.
thousand.
Yeah, certainly not the judges that have to walk that distance every day to make a judge call.
Well, you might need some more judges,
And
Jose.
You
Jose
might
loves
need
this
more
idea.
judges, Jose. So anyway, I leave that nugget in
Yes.
your guys's pocket. I
Nice.
think we've done the testing we as a team need to see if the system is going to work. Um,
Cool.
Keep an eye on things as they develop through the packet, through when tickets go on sale, through the LVOIS website, which again has event rules that the LVOIS champs is going to follow for you right now. So you as a TO
Nice.
can steal those rules and use them at your own events if you want. Because we are not, again, you can run an LVOS event by the GC doc. You don't have to use any of our stuff. But if you'd like to start using some of our stuff, again, there is a place that you can steal that, and I encourage you to do so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there
Cool
anything
beans.
else
Cool
that
beans. I
you
love
had
that
you wanted to bring
idea.
up today?
Who, me?
You. Yeah.
I feel like I talked enough.
Yeah.
All right. We don't have time for rules questions, but I do have
No,
one rules
no.
question.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, rules questions. All right.
Uh-huh.
And before I ask this question, I'm so glad you wore the shirt you wore today.
What
I'm
what
going to
does this
ask you
say?
about it. It says ask me about AMBAM deployment. So I'm going to ask you about AMBAM deployment.
Hmm. Go on.
Can you deploy using an AMBAM rifle?
You cannot.
Why?
Because the AMBAN double double arrow action, whatever you want to call it, gives you A and B. The double arrow action is not a move or a move action or speed X move. It is an action you perform by spending two, or is a thing you perform by spending 2 actions that gives you a move and that free shot to one shot a Jawa. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you asked Phil McCabe
All right.
of
I'm
the
glad you
Southern
brought him up.
California
That's why he
variety,
brought it up.
the reason why I have this T-shirt, he would tell you that there's this little known thing called the Magna
Magna Carta.
Carta that establishes precedent and
Yep.
certain rulings that have been made, you know, give you that precedent. I would encourage people to remember that each answer given on the rules forum only applies to the question in which it was asked.
Ooh,
And
so you guys are running on Bush v. Gore rules.
while precedent is, of course, a great standard and an admirable thing to shoot for, when you go to the Star Wars Legion Rules Forum, it says, "Welcome to the updated Star Wars Legion Rules Forum. Read me first." And what I just quoted is in there. So
Mhm.
also, Phil, how about you try reading? So just
Okay.
and that's a great thing to just remember across the board blankly, is that, each answer relates to the question in which was answered, and that I know that And it's mostly Seth these days because he is a better face of the party when it comes to rules forum than I am. That, whoever posts the answer, whoever replies, they're answering for the team. And that there is a team of people that are making these decisions these days and answering these rulings. I think we learned a lot from what I would call the cowboy ruling days of the of the 2022's threes. When Luke Eddy brought me on to help him with the rules forum, and the approach is more of the standard, but that it's not just that face that's answering the question, that it is something that's discussed. And that there is a system now where, as much as people like to say, like, hey, that thing's only on the rules forum, a lot of your things have made it in the rules book. It's a long process. It's not a quick process because every single thing that is created for this game, it doesn't matter what it is. Every single thing goes through Lucasfilm licensing. The
Um,
articles that I write to this rules document that that person on the other end probably knows nothing about, it all goes through that process, which takes time and editing. And it's Lucasfilm licensing. They've clearly got a lot of things that they're approving. And so it's one of those things where, like, we we store it somewhere, sorry, we store it somewhere, we categorize it, and it does make it in there eventually. There are things that have made it there where people are like, oh, that thing's never going to make it from the rules forum. It does. It happens. It just takes some
mhm.
time. So just don't forget that when you
Don't blame
message
the
me
mouse.
directly on Facebook about it and complain about a rules forum thing, and I mute you because I don't give a shit.
So I have one last question for you.
Hmm.
The whole ruling on the immobilized token, everyone's
Hmm.
like, you can't be, withdraw with the mobilize. Can you climb if you have an immobilized
I
token?
was gonna ask that.
I was too, because we were talking about this locally.
Yeah,
Because we
yeah.
I
feel
mean,
like we found a loophole.
honestly, I'm not sure, just
Okay.
because I haven't been super involved in that one.
Okay.
So, so the reason we're asking is
Hmm.
because I recently
So,
David Zelenka Endless came back to streaming, and he has a
Hmm.
very, very awesome streaming channel, Winter Moon Gaming, and they were
Hmm.
talking about the Immobilize stuff, and
Hmm.
I put it in our chat to let the guys look at it because it was like the hot topic, and
Hmm.
in there, they had mentioned that if you are in a melee and you are mobilized and you are close enough to something that you can climb, that
Hmm.
you could then use your climb withdrawal into a climb to get out of the melee,
Hmm.
regardless if you have an immobilize, because
because you can
it's not a
climb with the
speed,
immobilize.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's not a speed move, it just uses the speed tool.
Right. I mean, honestly, the best thing that could possibly happen to flatten the bubbles on this is just the wording around speed and maximums gets flattened, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
And I think look,
It comes to
the
the book needs to be changed by the mouse, I
right.
think.
And the way, if this problem has been identified by the team, obviously, it'd be inappropriate for me to tell you how that's worked or what they've said.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's
Yeah, of
not my goal
course.
here. But just to help explain the process, because that
Hmm.
I think I can, is if this problem was identified right now, like this very second, in most cases, I would assume 6 months before it's solved, because you have to find time on the schedule to make sure it goes to a rule book, which then has to be passed off through other levels of admin stuff within the company before it goes to an external person, and begins that process, which can be a 3 month process minimum,
Wow.
upon itself. So just, expand. There's so many things when it comes to Star Wars Legion, that now that I've
Mhm.
talked to people and I've been involved in different parts of the process, I just encourage people to expand their timeline. Just think about it in greater lengths. When somebody says, "Hey, this is a quick reaction to something that has happened," I know they have no idea what they're talking about because they don't appreciate kind of the timeline that a lot of these things operate on. And that now this 2.6 rule set rollout that you guys are seeing, this is the culmination of 3 years worth of work since AMG took over Legion. And just that, while we try to, like, fix those things, if something has been identified now, it does take a while for that to be updated, because in most cases you can't just fire a silver bullet and have it be fixed. It's not that that hasn't happened or that they haven't been able to quick react to stuff, but sometimes too, like, a quick reaction to something looks like, hey, we saw the article come out for dark troopers, and it looks like you can put personnel in it. And so, AMG has updated unit card or upgrade cards that say what can and can't go where, and they were like, "Oh, cool, they reacted to that fast," or "Oh, they put baby in a corner," and it's like, dog, that upgraded card took at least 6 months before 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 you knew the dark troopers were going to come out. Chill. So, so uh I'm sorry. I have to cop out. I don't know the climb answer off the top of my head.
Mhm.
That's fine.
I will say if a thing has been identified and we know it should be fixed, and we as in if that team at Atomic Mass Games that actually writes the rules, because I don't write the rules, has identified it, then that would be my personal fix that I would apply, is just address the way that speed specifically is talked about in the rule book.
Got it.
I also think, let's use Phil's favorite word. I think because we have precedent with Atomic Mass Games for place and advances within Shatterpoint and Marvel Crisis Protocol, I would love to see that verbiage come to Legion. I think,
Yes.
however, we probably missed the boat on that one because again, if we wanted to do that, that probably would have had to
Would
start
have been done.
2 years ago
Wow.
because we're talking about lead time for development and printing and stuff coming from boats over from China. That is a long process. And so if we realize it's a good idea now, we have to take a step back 18 months ago and be like, hey, would that make sense now? Because if we go and we change, speed X move to an advance, those cards that are already on the boat for the 2.6 rollout, as we like the Geonosians that we just got spoiled that are going to have their new box, that would have had been done 18 months ago. So
Yeah. Well, we actually did see that with Bad Batch, right? Omega never
mm-hmm.
had her original keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I
Well,
think
so
they
and there is some of that too that like, hey, sometimes when stuff gets to like the preview step where other people see it, maybe they get previewed a version of a card that
Mhm.
wasn't complete or was iterated on or something like that rather than the final product. But like you were saying, erratas and changing verbiage and stuff that can get fixed in future printings, and we also have seen that before.
Mhm.
So there's room for both. And I just encourage people to remember that. Like I said, when they direct message me on Facebook and tell me how I killed their dog because I made a ruling.
So the
True
tough
story.
question. So the tough question. Me and JR are playing a game. The
hmm
immobilized rule comes up. Mr.
hmm
Head Judge LJ, we
hmm
bring it to you. JR says
hmm
I can't withdraw, climb onto a building. I say I
hmm
can. What is
hmm
your ruling?
What I'd probably do, I'll take you through the steps. What I probably do is A, check the rule book, then I check the rules form, and I might have one person do this while I do the other thing.
Hmm.
As I read it right now, I would rule no, just because
Okay.
that doesn't make sense to me, and
Hmm.
I don't think that's what the ruling
Intention.
is as written or intent. I
Mhm.
think in this specific ruling, we're leaning on some shaky verbiage,
Hmm.
and so that would lead me to say no, you can't do that. So if I had
Okay.
to
I
rule
like
on it
it.
right now,
I like it.
I would rule on it. Your game would continue, and if you had a problem with an appeal to me, I'd tell you to suck eggs.
You heard it
Respectfully.
here.
Wow.
You heard
Respectfully,
it
of
here. You
course.
can't you can't do that. The head judge ruled on the Legion Lads
Yeah.
podcast.
Uh-huh.
Well.
She's for you, sir.
Uh,
Gosh, that harkens back to the FFG days where at LVO 2020 somebody brought me a piece of paper because they emailed Alex and the team and were like, "Hey, the team said this." And I turned around, I took that piece of paper and I gave it to Alex, who was at LVO. And I
Oh
said, "Do you
no.
agree with this?" And he's like, "No, they're wrong." And I tore it up and then I made a ruling.
Yes.
And what a glorious day that was.
oh man, that's hilarious. I feel like that's a mini Jose right there. Just like what?
Yeah.
Here's your rule book.
And that is why I am okay with the rules forum because at least everybody can access it.
Yeah,
Unlike
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
unlike
nice.
the like okay, I know some people still aren't used to it or don't like it or maybe don't agree with the approach, but I lived the email days or the FFG forum days. I lived those days. This is I know it sucks to have a ruling go against you because A, you found out it got updated in the rules forum, but man, at least everybody has access to the rules forum.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Life
So
life could be worse.
absolutely. Well, LJ, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing the process because
Thank
that can
you.
put so many things in perspective.
Mhm.
And thank you again for running the LVO tournament because it's an amazing tournament. We love going to it. So kudos to your team and to everything that you did. And if you do implement chess clocks, I would love that. But we'll get there eventually. I know Jose's all go for it.
And he's thank you for the event. I want to thank you for running the whole series as well because I think that's big. Giving something worth fighting for, even if
Mhm.
somebody, even if it's not like an actual prize, a physical prize, like having the ticket on the line, it does matter, and it does make events that would otherwise be, we're here for fun. It gives them a little bit of like we're here for fun, but and I
Yeah.
do appreciate that.
Yeah,
Eh, can I plug this season?
absolutely.
Do
Yeah.
it.
All right. I'm not going to do a deep dive because we've already been here for 3 hours. The 2025 season is up. Like we've talked about a couple times throughout this cast, you can go to lvois.com, and then specifically there's a button for Legion. There's a button for MCP if your community likes to do that. And I hear within the next couple weeks there might also be a button for Shatterpoint. So keep an eye out there.
Oh, okay,
Ooh.
okay.
But when you go to the Legion section, we've got all of our documents and rules where you can read up how you qualify. What are some suggested event guidelines or rules you might want to use at your event, especially if you're a newer TO, especially when communities start exploding again, when the product
Hopefully,
starts free flowing.
let's say
Uh,
let's hope.
and of course, some of the baseline expectations and rules we have at LVO 2026. So if you do compete in the series, you already know what standards you're going to be held to if you attend the event. And of course, one of the most important things, you can apply for an event. We have 46, 47 events that have been approved and that are on our public schedule right now. So the season is already churning. They go from now, well, they go from, last January to December already or November. So they go throughout the whole season already. And they're already in like 4 different countries. So people are applying, we're approving. Events are happening every weekend. It's great. And we invite everybody to apply to that system and join us. Even if, the people that place well or win your events never go, because the way that this system is set up, it doesn't hurt us at all if you run an event and nobody ends up using your fake internet points and nobody comes to LVO 2026. That's okay. But what it will hopefully give you is if you're a TO partnering with the store to run events, you know that you could run an LVOS qualifier every 90 days at the same store because you read the rules, unlike Jose. And you go and you say, hey, January, the second weekend of January. That's my LVOS qualifier for the first quarter. Then we plan our event in April. Then we plan our event in September, and then we plan one in December. You can use this as a structure for your events throughout the year, which just gets people in the store playing Legion. And
Yep.
that is the goal at the end of the day. Again, if you don't use the fake internet points and you don't care about standings, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you're achieving the goal, which is for us to play Legion and build the community. But also, if you need that structure, we've now given you a structure, we've given you a format, we've provided a branding kit that tells you how to use our logos, our colors, and Canva templates where you can go plug in your store and generate a Facebook banner or a poster for you to now use. So not only have you participated in our system, but you have also made your events look more professional, they're ran better, and they reflect the community that is actually running them. And so we encourage people to continue to participate because those things I think benefit everybody. And when you finally run your event, or maybe you just applied for it and you want to see it out there, there is a place for you to view the schedule, both in an Excel and a calendar format, and then a place for you to view the points list and see where people have placed, see who is on top of the season so far, which is my boy, who's currently sitting at number one, Daniel Cass Lassie. one of my favorite people in the Legion world, who already has points from the LVOIS Championship, Space City Charity Legion event, and the Crate Dragon event, and is currently sitting at
Wow.
#1 on the points list. You can see that.
Nice.
It's all public knowledge, public information. Finally, I mentioned this a couple times, but the way AMG is handling organized play at the moment makes it difficult for you to purchase and use store kits that are current and useful for Legion 2.6. We are partnering with Jerry's Game Shop to fix that. So even if you are not running a LVOIS qualifier, you can go to Jerry's Game Shop on Etsy and you can buy stuff to support your tournaments. If you're running an official qualifier, you can grab one of our LVOIS support kits. We made 4 of them. So again, you can run an event in your store every 90 days. That's 4 events throughout the year. We made 4 kits. So every event you can run a different
Nice.
kit and sprinkle your people in all the various swag, like 1.5 range tools, POIs, score trackers, things you need in 2.6.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our prizes for this year.
Cool.
So we thank them for helping us bring that legitimacy to the system, because we think it looks good and the branding is dope, and I'm a big fan of it.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
I just want to say thank you for coming on, LJ. Appreciate you. Um, you you on our show helps us out a lot because you bring a lot of eyes to us,
Mhm.
and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch a bunch of dudes have table talk on a podcast. And we're very grateful for you and everything you do, grateful for your team. And I just want to say, thank you from all of us here at the Legion Lads for giving us 3 hours of your time when you're
Yeah.
on the other coast. Like we can
Yeah.
never thank you enough, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. This, like I said, I wanted to frame the discussion a certain way. I think we achieved that goal. I think we
mhm,
talked a lot about what the process is behind running a large event, but also kind of laying it all out there also helps me stay accountable throughout the course of a year as I move towards planning that next event. It gives me so much to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And just to tie it back to the start, I really appreciate your guys' highlighting the teams and the work and the people specifically, by name in some cases that goes into running these events, and that to me is worth the world because that's what makes the event happen.
All right.
absolutely. Well, I think we took enough time from you. Those that are still listening, wow, thank you.
Fire episode.
Yeah, but
All right,
again,
if you've made it to the event, we're about to break down the stat block for Gungans.
oh,
Hold on to your butts because we're about to
Right.
talk about some big boomas.
Jose's dream right there.
I've been waiting, man.
But anyways, guys, thank you again for listening, and thank you, good boys, for joining me today. And we'll see you guys next time. Later.